I hate long drives at night, the way the world narrows to two white lines and a heartbeat. The hum of the tires always sounds the same, steady, rhythmic, hypnotic. When I'm driving alone, it becomes something else. A pulse that doesn't belong to me. I'm Aaron Wexler, 32 night shift EMT in Ridgefield, Ohio. After enough years on the job, you learn that darkness itself isn't the thing to fear. It's what hides inside it. But that night, even the darkness felt alive. Rain came in thin sheets across the windshield, silver veins under the streetlights. The wipers moved like a slow pulse back and forth, keeping time with my breathing. The air smelled like wet asphalt and coffee gone stale. I was 20 minutes from home when my phone buzzed in the cup holder. I almost ignored it. Calls after midnight usually meant another dispatch, another wreck, another stranger bleeding in the road. But it wasn't a call. It was a message. From Lena. At first, that didn't make sense. The screen was cracked, from the crash last month, but I could still read the text through the spiderweb lines. Don't turn around. She's in the passenger seat, I laughed, out loud, because grief does that to you. It breaks you, then gives you moments of absurdity. Except then I remembered. Lena had been dead 8 months. A heartbeat later, the laughter caught in my throat. I glanced at the empty road ahead, black asphalt glistening under white light. Then back at the phone. The message was still there. Time-stamped 1 minute ago. The heater coughed a gust of air. It felt wrong, cold instead of warm. The interior of the car shifted almost imperceptibly, as though weight had changed on the seat beside me. I told myself I was imagining it. I always did. Rain whispered harder against the glass. My breath fogged faintly. I adjusted the defroster and caught in the far right corner of the windshield a reflection that didn't belong there. A shape. Still. Sitting. My fingers clenched on the steering wheel. The leather felt slick. The shape moved, or maybe the light shifted, and I saw hair first, wet, dripping down pale skin. I told myself, out loud, it's nothing. But the air was too heavy to be nothing. I blinked, forced my eyes back to the road, and tried to breathe in rhythm with the wipers. In, out, left, right. The seatbelt on the passenger side was fastened. I hadn't fastened it. My phone buzzed again. Same contact, same name. I hadn't said out loud in months, keep driving. Don't let her see you see her. I felt a shiver start deep in my spine, crawl upward through the base of my skull. Lena? I whispered. The name sounded wrong in the air, like it didn't belong in this version of the world. Outside, the road looked endless. Headlights carved narrow tunnels through the fog. Inside, I could hear the hum of the engine, and beneath it, something else. A second breath. It matched mine at first, then drifted slower, a deliberate, patient kind of breathing. Static crackled through the car speakers, even though the radio was off. The sound built thin and whispering like words caught inside a storm. Then I heard it, my name. Soft, almost tender Aaron, once. Then again slower, like she was learning it all over again. I swallowed. My tongue felt dry. I wanted to glance sideways to prove the seat was empty, but something in the text kept replaying in my head. Don't let her see you see her. So I kept my eyes on the road, gripping the wheel until my knuckles whitened. Rain turned to mist. The lines on the asphalt shimmered like veins under skin. The smell changed. Not just damp now. Metallic. Sweet. The scent that follows an accident long after the lights go. Out her breath, if that's what it was, and brushed my ear closer than before. I whispered to no one. You're not real, but she was. I could feel her. Cold, wet fingers touched my right hand. Gentle at first, tracing the ridge of my knuckle, then pressing down. I flinched. The car swerved across the yellow line. Tires hissed against water. I yanked the wheel back, heartbeat slamming in my throat. For a split second, headlights flashed across the passenger seat, and I saw her. Hair plastered to her cheeks, skin gray, lips blue, empty sockets, broken teeth that glinted like glass. I slammed the brakes. The car spun. Light and darkness twisted together until the world went white. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, the engine was idling. I was parked in front of my house. No crash. No skid marks, just quiet. The passenger seat was empty, seatbelt unbuckled, phone screen cracked. One unread text, "You looked." I sat there shaking. My throat tasted like rust. Rain tapped soft against the roof, lighter now, like it had never meant harm. I should have gone inside. But the thought of stepping out, of turning my back to that seat, made my skin crawl. So I sat there. For minutes, maybe hours, watching the mirror, waiting for something to move. Nothing did. Still, I could feel her, like she'd seeped into the upholstery, into the hum of the engine. That night, I dreamed of her face, not how she looked at the funeral, not even how she looked the day she died, but how she looked in the car. Wet, hollow, hungry. When I woke, the imprint of a hand was on the inside of the passenger window. Small, smudged, like condensation, but darker. Oily, almost. I wiped it away before sunrise. It came back the next night. I told myself it was my own breath. Misplaced. That's what grief does. It makes you invent logic for impossible things. At work, I started keeping the radio on in the ambulance, even between calls. The silence reminded me too much of that drive. My partner Ricky noticed. "You good, man?" he asked one night. We were parked behind the hospital waiting for a call. The night was thick with fog. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." He nodded, but his eyes lingered. He didn't ask about the bruise on my wrist. The one shaped like fingers. A week passed. Then two. Each night when I drove home, the road felt longer, like the town was stretching. Sometimes I saw flashes of her in the reflection of passing cars, a silhouette in their passenger seats, head tilted toward me. Once I thought I saw her on the sidewalk. Just standing there. When I blinked, she was gone. I stopped telling myself it was nothing, but I didn't tell anyone else either. Because how do you explain that your dead wife keeps finding her way into your car? The texts didn't stop. They came sporadically, middle of the night, no pattern. "Are you driving again? She misses you. Stop looking in mirrors." Each message came from the same number, the one buried with her phone. I went to the cemetery once, out of guilt. It was raining, and it always seemed to be raining now. Her headstone looked smaller than I remembered. The ground around it was soft, muddy, like it had been disturbed recently. A crow perched on the cross next to her name. It didn't move when I approached. I wanted to speak. To apologize maybe, but words felt wrong in my mouth. Instead, I reached out and laid my palm against the stone. It was warm. I left without looking back. That night, the car alarm went off at 3:17 a.m. When I stepped outside, the passenger door was open. Rain poured in, soaking the seat. I should have felt anger. Instead, I felt relief. At least it proved I wasn't imagining things. I left the door open until dawn. By morning, it was closed again. The smell of damp hair lingered for days. Sleep stopped coming easily after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her mouth moving, whispering words I couldn't hear. Sometimes I'd wake to find my phone glowing on the nightstand, screen unlocked. Message draft open, words typed but unsent. Come back. I thought maybe I was sleep texting. Until one morning I noticed the wet fingerprint smudge on the screen. Work started to suffer. I made small mistakes, missed vitals, wrong street numbers. Ricky covered for me, but I saw the worry in his face. One night he said, "You ever think about selling that car?" I didn't answer, because I couldn't, because I'd already tried. 2 days earlier I'd listed it online. A guy came to see it, middle-aged, friendly enough. He took one look inside, frowned, and said he'd changed his mind. When I asked why, he pointed at the fogged passenger window. "There's someone sitting there," he said. When I turned, the seat was empty, but the seatbelt was buckled. He left without another word. After that, I stopped trying to sell it. I told myself I'd drive one last time. Just once more, to prove I could. It was a Friday. Quiet, no rain for once. The sky was bruised purple, the kind of dusk that never quite decides to become night. I started the engine. Static filled the radio even before I turned it on. Halfway down the highway, the smell returned, that faint metallic sweetness that didn't belong to this world. The dashboard clock flickered, then went dark. I kept driving. The road stretched longer than it ever had. Landmarks disappeared. No towns, no exits, just the endless hum beneath the tires. Then, breath. Close again, right beside me. I said her name. Soft. Apologetic. The air shifted, and for the first time, I turned my head. She was there, closer than before. Eyes empty but fixed on me. Her lips moved. The voice that came out was barely sound. "Why did you leave me?" I didn't have an answer. I didn't even know if she meant the accident, the night she died, or something older, something between us that had died long before she did. I reached out without thinking. Her hand met mine. Cold. Familiar. The car veered. The world spun again. When it stopped, there was no sound at all, only her voice, whispering from everywhere. "You looked." The headlights blinked out. I don't remember getting home, but every night since I find myself behind the wheel again. Engine running, headlights off. Sometimes I drive without knowing where I'm going. Sometimes I don't remember turning the key, but always, when the windshield fogs and the seatbelt clicks beside me, softly, automatically, and I know she's there waiting to buckle in. You ever hit something on the road and tell yourself it was nothing? That's what I did. It's strange how easily you can convince yourself the world is fine, even when it isn't. That night, I told myself everything was fine. The air smelled like wet dirt and gasoline. Fog hung low enough to kiss the headlights, soft and white and endless. The road was narrow, the kind of two-lane blacktop that feels more like a memory than a place. I'm Mason Price, 30, returning home from a weekend shift in Briar Creek, Kentucky. I'd been working out near the oil fields, 12-hour nights drinking burnt coffee, pretending the paycheck was worth it. By the time I left, my head felt full of static. The highway was empty. No cars for miles. Just me, my old sedan, and the faint hum of tires spinning against damp asphalt. I've always liked driving at night. There's something honest about it, like the world gets stripped down to light and shadow and the sound of your own breathing. But that night, the quiet didn't feel clean. It felt like the world was waiting for me to do something wrong. Fog thickened around the car, swallowing the road ahead. The headlights were two pale tunnels barely cutting through it. That's when it happened. A flash of movement. Low, fast, crossing from right to left. I didn't even have time to swear. My foot hit the brake too late. The sound was awful. A soft, heavy thud. Not like metal. Like meat. The car jerked hard. My body lurched against the seatbelt. The sound still plays in my head like a bag of wet sand hitting the hood. For a second, the only thing I could hear was my heartbeat, sharp and uneven. Then silence. I pulled over. Tires hissed against gravel. Steam rose from the hood, curling up like breath from a dying thing. The air smelled wrong, burnt rubber and iron, the tang of something sharp and metallic. I stepped out. The fog wrapped around me instantly. It felt thick enough to chew. The road was empty. No movement. No sound. Just mist, asphalt, and the glow of my headlights cutting through the void. I walked around to the front of the car. No dent, no fur, nothing. My hands shook as I crouched down, the gravel damp beneath my palms. I half expected to see a raccoon or a deer, some poor thing I could at least name. But there was nothing. Then I saw it. A line of marks trailing away from the car. Thin, dark streaks across the pavement. They didn't look like skid marks. They looked like something had been dragged, or had dragged itself. Each streak glistened faintly under the light, sticky and uneven. I swallowed hard and followed them. Each step felt heavier. My boots made soft sounds like peeling skin off tar. The mist thickened as I moved, wrapping tighter, muting the world. The marks led toward the back of my car. That's when I saw it. A hand, small, pale, human, crawling toward the bumper. It twitched once, twice, fingers flexing like it still remembered life. I stumbled backward. Breath caught halfway up my throat. The hand stopped, then curled, like it recognized me. I couldn't move. I couldn't even think. I grabbed my flashlight, the one I kept under the seat, and aimed it beneath the car. The beam caught something else. A face, half buried in the dirt. Eyes open, mouth moving, soundless, the lips formed one word. Why? I froze. Every muscle locked. The voice I didn't hear was louder than anything real. I don't remember dropping the flashlight, but I remember the sound it made, a hollow clatter swallowed by fog. When the beam rolled back toward the car, the face was gone, just wet ground. I ran. I jumped into the driver's seat, slammed the door, started the engine. The tires spun on wet gravel before gripping, spitting stones behind me as I floored it. The radio flickered on by itself. Static filled the car, rising in waves. Then, through it, a voice. Slow. Broken. You left me there. I shut it off. Static bled through anyway. The rearview mirror fogged. For a second, through the haze, I saw her, a woman, gray, still, sitting behind me, cradling that hand in her lap. Her head tilted slightly, like she was listening to the sound of the tires. I didn't look again. I couldn't. I just kept driving. The road curved and stretched like a vein through the dark. I drove until sunrise, parked by the river, sat there with the engine off, listening to it tick as it cooled. The fog had burned away, replaced by thin gold light filtering through the trees. When I finally worked up the nerve, I stepped out. The world looked normal again. Birds, water, wind. I crouched beside the car. Nothing. No hand, no face. No blood. Just the smell. That thick coppery scent of something that shouldn't be there. I scrubbed the bumper with a rag until my hands hurt. The smell didn't fade. I drove home with the windows down, letting the wind whip through. By the time I reached the edge of town, I'd convinced myself it was exhaustion, hallucination, sleep deprivation. I told myself stories the way you do when you can't live with the truth. But when I pulled into my driveway, the smell came back, not faint, not imagined, strong, wet, like something was rotting under the car. I crouched again, shining the flashlight underneath. Nothing. Still, I could hear it, a faint wet sound like something dragging across metal. I told myself it was just the engine cooling. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face in the fog. Eyes open, mouth moving, the word looping soundlessly. Why? I called in sick the next morning. By afternoon, I was back on that same road. I don't know why. Maybe I thought if I saw it in daylight, it'd lose its power. Maybe I just needed to know I hadn't lost my mind. The sky was flat and gray, the kind of color that makes everything look like an old photograph. When I reached the spot, or what I thought was the spot, I pulled over. There were faint stains on the asphalt, but it could have been anything. Oil, dirt, shadows. I followed the shoulder, kicking at gravel. That's when I saw the drag marks again. Fresh, leading off the road, into the ditch. I stopped breathing for a moment. The grass was wet, slick with dew. My boots made no sound as I stepped down. The smell hit before I saw it. Rot. Sweet, heavy, unmistakable. I shined the flashlight. Mud, water, a torn piece of fabric caught on a branch. Blue cotton, the kind of color hospital scrubs come in. I froze. My mouth went dry. I knew that color. It was the same uniform I'd been wearing that night. The night I'd left Briar Creek. Medical after my shift. The same uniform she wore. Her name was Elena, the new nurse. The one I'd carpooled with for a month before she stopped showing up. They said she quit. Moved back home. But she hadn't. Not really. The flashlight flickered. The light dimmed to a pulse. A shape moved in the ditch. Slow, crawling. A hand. Small. Pale. Dragging itself through the mud toward the road. My heart punched against my ribs so hard I thought they'd break. I stumbled backward, fell against the hood. The hand stopped moving. The fingers twitched. Then the mud rippled. Something else rose from the dark. Shoulders, a head hair clinging wetly to skin. Her eyes opened, not white, not black, just hollow. She smiled, and in that moment I remembered everything. The night I dropped her off, the rain, the flash of headlights, the thud. I hadn't hit a deer, I'd hit her. I never checked, never stopped long enough to see. She wasn't found. The police said she'd vanished after her shift. Everyone assumed she'd run, but she hadn't. She'd been waiting. The mud bubbled around her. The dragging marks spread, curling into the road like veins. I turned and ran, jumped into the car, started the engine. The radio came on by itself, static. Then her voice. Soft. You left me there. The headlights flickered. I pressed the gas. The tires spun, catching mud and stone. When the car lurched forward, I saw her in the mirror again, sitting in the back seat, cradling the hand against her chest. Her lips moved, slow and wet. Why? The rear view fogged until all I could see was my own reflection behind hers. I drove until the road blurred, until my mind felt like it was splitting open. When the sun rose, I was parked by the river again. The smell still filled the car. I stepped out, knees weak. No blood. No body. But when I crouched beside the wheel, the dirt was different. New tracks, dragging marks leading back toward the road, like something had crawled away. I didn't follow them this time. I just stood there, breathing in the smell of iron and damp air, and realized something simple. I wasn't sure if I'd left her or if she'd left me. Now, whenever I drive that same road, I see them appear again, those faint marks shining in my headlights. They always lead back toward the same spot. And every time I hear that soft, wet thud, I keep driving, because this time, I don't want to know what's trying to crawl back home. It started with the radio. They always say never drive tired, but they never warn you about what finds you when you're half awake. The night smelled like rain and diesel, the kind of smell that clings to your skin no matter how many showers you take after. I'm Caleb Horn, 33, long-haul trucker from Ashbury, Illinois. I'd been on the road for 14 hours straight, hauling grain from a depot in Missouri back toward home. Route 59, a straight, narrow cut through flat country. Nothing but cornfields, fog, and the dull hum of tires under a sky too big to care. It was the kind of drive that eats your thoughts alive if you don't feed them noise. So I had the radio on. Old country songs drifting in and out of static, the voices warbling like they were underwater. I'd been flipping stations for hours trying to find something that didn't sound like ghosts whispering through broken glass. Then I caught a new frequency. A voice, faint, coming to hiding just behind the music. I thought it was talk radio until it said my name. Caleb Horn, seatbelt on, eyes on the road. I froze. My hand hovered over the dial. The voice laughed softly. Then it began describing me. Gray hoodie, coffee cup on the dash, left turn signal blinking for no reason. I glanced down. The blinker was on. I hadn't touched it. I shut the radio off. Silence. For a second, I thought maybe it was just exhaustion, some kind of auditory glitch from too much caffeine and not enough sleep. Then the radio clicked back on by itself. Don't touch the dial again. The voice was clearer now. The static had a rhythm, like breathing. I stared at the glowing red numbers on the radio display. 30.7, a station I'd never heard before. The signal sharpened. A woman's voice this time, soft, familiar somehow. Keep driving. Caleb, you're almost home. The way she said it, steady, warm, made something in my chest tighten. Because that was what Mara used to say. My wife. She'd been dead for 3 years. I gripped the wheel tighter, the leather rough beneath my fingers. The fog ahead shimmered faintly, swallowing the road. The GPS on my dash flickered. The route blinked, then changed. Destination updated. Static lane. I frowned. Never heard of it, I muttered. No streetlights, no exits. just endless black beyond the beams of my headlights. The engine hummed lower, like it was straining. I reached for the radio again, ready to pull the fuse if I had to. The voice cut in. "Eyes on the road? Caleb." I jerked my hand back. My throat was dry. I swallowed air that tasted like metal. I tried to laugh, but it came out thin. "You're losing it, man. Long shifts, sleep deprivation, that's all." But the voice, her voice, didn't stop. Almost there. The GPS map turned gray. No towns, no lines, just that blinking arrow floating in nothing. Outside, the fog grew so thick it felt solid. The headlights only reached a few feet before dissolving. Something about the silence underneath the static made my scalp crawl. The hum of the truck was the only proof the world hadn't stopped. Then, the steering wheel stiffened. I tried to turn. It locked completely. The truck kept rolling straight, slow, and steady, like something else had taken control. My pulse hammered. I pressed the brake. Nothing. The radio hissed louder, layers of static folding over themselves until it sounded like hundreds of whispers buried inside one another. I slammed my fist against the wheel. "Stop it!" Every station on the radio began playing the same voice. Some were ahead of me, some were behind, and one was whispering from the passenger seat. I turned my head. The air beside me shimmered faintly, like heat rippling off asphalt. A sound came from it, soft, wet, like a microphone being dragged across someone's lips. Then I saw it. A radio microphone, old and scuffed, pressed against my shoulder. It wasn't mine. A thick black cord snaked down the seat and disappeared into the dark behind me. The voice came through the speakers again, calm, deliberate. "You're home now." The truck shuddered once, twice, and then died. No headlights. No sound but the faint crawling static still bleeding through the speakers. I sat there gripping the wheel, staring into the black. The world felt too big outside the glass. The smell of rain mixed with something electrical. Ozone. Burning metal. I tried the key. Nothing. Tried the door. Locked. When I turned my head toward the passenger side, I caught movement in the reflection of the window. A silhouette. Sitting there. I couldn't see a face, just the outline of a head tilted toward me, the faint glow of the radio reflecting where eyes should be. I whispered, "Mara," before I even realized I'd said it. The voice in the radio laughed again. "Almost home." Then silence. The fog outside the windshield pulsed faintly, like something breathing. I sat there until dawn. When the first light bled through the trees, the fog lifted. The radio was quiet again. The keys worked. The truck rumbled back to life like nothing had happened. But the GPS still read, "Static lane, arrived." The map showed no road. Just a gray field. I drove until I found the highway again. The air felt normal. The world had edges again. By the time I reached Ashbury, I'd almost convinced myself it was some twisted dream brought on by exhaustion. But then I noticed the dirt on the tires. Thick, red, not the color of any soil I knew. That night, at the truck stop diner, I mentioned it to another driver, Tommy, an old-timer who'd run routes since before I was born. He stopped stirring his coffee. "Static lane," he said quietly. "You sure you heard that?" I nodded. He didn't look at me again. Just muttered, "That road doesn't exist anymore." When I asked what he meant, he stood up and left his cup half full. I didn't sleep that night because I started hearing it again. Not the static. The voice. Soft, buried under the hum of my mini-fridge. "Keep driving, Caleb." Everywhere I went after that, the sound followed. The CB radio in my cab turned on by itself. The dashboard flickered at random. Sometimes, I'd catch her voice between songs on other stations, one clear word cutting through a flood of white noise. Home. After a week, I started checking routes before every trip. Terrified I'd see those two words again. Static lane. I told myself it was superstition, a driver's paranoia, but the fear didn't fade. Then 2 nights ago, I got a new job assignment. An overnight haul through a town I didn't recognize. I typed the destination into the GPS. It loaded. Coordinates only. No city name. The route appeared. One road, long, straight. The name flickered before settling. Static Lane. My stomach turned to water. I tried to delete it. The system froze. When I shut the screen off, the speakers whispered in the dark. "You're almost home." I ripped the radio from the dash, wires snapping. Silence for a second. Then a soft click. The sound of another radio turning on somewhere, behind me. I turned slowly. On the passenger seat sat an old CB, microphone. Its red light blinked. Once, a voice whispered through the small, cracked speaker. "Keep driving, Caleb." The light flickered again. "You're almost home." I didn't move. Couldn't. The truck's engine started on its own. The dashboard glowed faint blue. The GPS lit up one more time. Static Lane, route active. The fog returned, thicker than ever. I could smell rain again. Diesel. And something else. Warm metal, like blood on a radiator. The headlights cut through nothing. I reached for the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. The steering wheel began to turn by itself, slow and deliberate. The radio speakers all around me whispered at once, dozens of voices layered together. Seatbelt on. Eyes on the road. My breath hitched. The air tasted like copper. The sound grew louder, the voices looping into each other until they became one, hers. "Keep driving, Caleb." I screamed for it to stop, slammed the brakes, killed the ignition. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, it was morning. I was parked on a dirt road lined with trees I didn't recognize. The GPS still glowed. Static Lane arrived. The radio was silent, but in the reflection of the glass, for a split second I saw her sitting next to me, smiling, the old CB microphone resting in her lap. Now, every time I drive that route, no matter the weather or the load, the signal finds me again. Same voice, same words. "Keep driving, Caleb, you're almost home." I used to love night drives. The quiet, the rhythm of the road, the feeling that the world belonged only to me. There's something almost holy about an empty highway after midnight. No headlights behind you. No one ahead, just that steady hum beneath your hands, the sound of your own life moving forward. I'm Daniel Hart, 34 delivery driver from Cedar Hollow, Indiana. That night I was heading home after a 12-hour shift, half asleep, half alive. The air smelled of damp asphalt and gasoline. My wipers squeaked across the windshield in lazy arcs. I'd had 2 cups of gas station coffee, both cold now, both sitting in the cup holder like evidence of bad decisions. It should have been a simple route. County line to I-76. Merge onto the highway. Drive 40 minutes, get home. Kiss my wife on the forehead, collapse into bed. But somewhere along that stretch, the familiar turned strange. The first time I noticed it, I thought it was my exhaustion playing tricks. The green reflective glow of a mile marker appeared ahead, 73. A minute later, another one. 3, then another. Same number, same dented corner on the sign. I frowned, rubbed my eyes. I knew the route, I'd driven it for years. There should have been 74, then 75, all the way to 81 by the turnoff. I told myself I must have looped somehow. Maybe there was a detour I'd missed. The hum of the tires deepened as the pavement changed texture, like the road was breathing underneath me. I glanced at the clock. 12:37 a.m. The digital numbers glowed weak red, trembling faintly like candlelight. I drove another mile. Still 73. I started counting out loud, just to prove something to myself. 1 mile, 2, 3. Still the same number. Soft, static hums. The radio clicked on by itself. Just a low hiss of static. I turned the dial, searching for a voice, anything. A preacher, a pop song, the late-night weather report. Nothing but static. I killed the power. Then my GPS screen flickered. The cheerful voice said, calm as ever, continue straight for 10 miles. But the map was blank. No highway, no town, no route. Just a gray void stretching across the screen like fog. My chest tightened. I tapped the screen, no response. Come on, I muttered, smacking the dashboard. The air vents blew a breath of cold air in my face, the scent sharp and metallic, like wet pennies. I looked out again. Another sign. Mile marker 73. But now, underneath the numbers, a second line had appeared. Stay on the road. I slowed down, staring. The reflective paint shimmered faintly blue, letters uneven like they'd been scrawled by hand. Real funny, I said to no one, voice shaking more than I meant it to. Probably some kid screwing around. The steering wheel felt slick under my palms. Sweat or rain, I couldn't tell which. I pressed the gas harder. The trees on either side blurred into black streaks. The air thickened, heavy, like driving underwater. After a few minutes, another sign. Same number, same words. Mile marker 73, stay on the road. I tried to call Hannah, my wife, but the signal bar was gone. No service. When I glanced at the rearview mirror, the world behind me was gone too. No road. No sky. Just black. It felt like the highway ended 5 feet behind the car, like the rest of existence had shut off. I eased off the accelerator, letting the car coast. The sound of gravel under the tires faded until it became silence. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. A figure, standing by the mile marker ahead, facing away. I tapped the brakes, headlights catching the outline. Tall still, dark clothes clinging to a body that didn't seem to breathe. "Hey!" I called out through the open window. My voice vanished into the quiet. I honked once. The figure didn't move. The sign behind it shimmered. The number glowed brighter. 73. I leaned forward, squinting, my heart thudding against the seatbelt. And then it was gone. Just gone. Except, when I blinked, it was standing 5 feet closer. The same position, same posture, like a skipping frame in a broken film reel. I slammed the gas pedal down. The tires screeched, the car fishtailed, and for one long breathless second I thought I saw the figure's head turn. Not all the way. Just enough. Enough to show the corner of a jawline that looked familiar. Too familiar. I tore past, eyes fixed dead ahead, refusing to look again. But when the headlights hit the next stretch, there it was again. Same stance, same distance from the road, same mile marker, 4 behind it. I could feel my pulse beating in my teeth. I tried the radio again, static, then a click, and a voice. Low, calm, familiar. "Welcome back, Daniel." My hand froze on the dial. The voice wasn't the GPS, wasn't the radio host. It was mine. I yanked the plug from the power outlet. Static still bled through the speakers. "You took the wrong turn again." I stared at the dash. My reflection in the dark glass looked pale, distant. The voice came softer now, closer. "Stay on the road." Something about the words triggered a memory. Faint, slippery. The last argument with Hannah before my accident last year. Her shouting, "You never stay on the road, you never stay anywhere." I shook the thought away. "You're tired," I told myself. "You're just tired." I kept driving. Every few minutes, another sign, every one of them 73. I rolled the window down. Cold air hit me like a slap. I could smell the woods, wet bark, something faintly sweet underneath like rotting fruit. The hum beneath the tires changed pitch. The road wasn't asphalt anymore. It sounded grainier, coarser, like gravel grinding against metal. I turned on the high beams. The light caught something glinting on the ground. Nails, scattered in a spiral pattern across the lane. I swerved around them, heart hammering. Behind me, in the mirror, they were gone. The figure was there instead, standing dead center in the lane. I gripped the wheel tighter, knuckles bone white. "Not real," I whispered. "Not real." The GPS lit up again. A single line of text flickered on the blank screen. Look at him. I didn't. I couldn't. My peripheral vision caught the faintest movement, something shifting in the passenger seat. The air inside the car grew colder, the kind of cold that feels wet. I reached out to turn off the AC. The dial snapped off in my fingers. The static on the radio deepened until it almost sounded like breathing. Then, beneath it, a whisper. Daniel. I gritted my teeth. No, Daniel, you shouldn't have left. The voice was mine again, but layered, echoing like two versions of me speaking over each other, one a fraction slower. The headlights flickered. The figure by the next sign lifted its head. I saw its face, my own, eyes pale as glass, smile wrong, too wide, stretching where it shouldn't. I hit the brakes. The car skidded sideways, engine choking. The world around me blinked, on, off, on, like a dying bulb. When it steadied, the road ahead was empty. I sat there, engine rumbling, trying to breathe. My chest felt heavy, my hand shaking against the wheel. The mirror caught my face, except the reflection smiled. I didn't. The headlights dimmed, flickered out. The engine died. Silence pressed in, thick and absolute. For a long moment, I sat without moving. The only sound was my heartbeat. Then the static returned, faint and rhythmic. It wasn't from the radio anymore, it was coming from outside, from the mile marker. A dull, humming vibration, almost like a voice buried under static, whispering, "Welcome back." I opened the door. The cold hit me like a wall. The night smelled different now, cleaner, sharper, as if rain had just fallen though the sky was dry. I stepped out. Gravel crunched under my boots. The sign stood a few yards away, number glowing faint green. And beside it, the figure. Closer now. Head tilted. Same jacket, same face, same eyes. My own voice whispered behind me, from inside the car. Stay on the road. I turned. The driver's seat was empty. My reflection was still in the rear view, mirror, grinning. My heart stuttered. The figure at the marker lifted its hand, beckoning, slow, steady. I took a step back. The gravel shifted beneath me, slick with moisture. The air shimmered faintly like heat waves in reverse, and for a second I saw something behind him. Rows of cars stretching into the dark, each parked perfectly in line. Headlights off, windshields fogged. Inside each car, a driver slumped forward, each one with my face. I stumbled back toward my car. My foot caught on the edge of the road and I fell hard onto the asphalt. The impact knocked the air out of me. When I looked up and the figure was standing over me. His expression changed. Not anger, not pity, just recognition, as if we'd been waiting for this moment to happen again. He crouched. I felt the cold of his breath. "You missed your exit." I tried to speak, but my mouth wouldn't open. My jaw felt locked, heavy, like someone else's hand was moving it. He smiled wider. The edges of the world began to flicker. The air vibrated with static. Stay on the road. Then everything went white. When I came to, the car was moving again. My hands on the wheel. The road stretching endlessly ahead. The GPS spoke in that same calm tone. "Continue straight for 10 miles. The radio was off. My reflection in the windshield looked normal, except the mile marker ahead glowed faintly. I laughed once, weakly, like maybe it was all a dream. But then the voice came again, from the passenger seat and soft, identical to mine. "Welcome back." And I realized I didn't know which one of us had said it. Now, every time I drive that route, the GPS still says, "Continue straight for 10 miles. And every few minutes, the sign reappears, mile marker 73. Sometimes, when I look out the window, I see my other self still standing there, waiting for me to take the wrong turn again. They say the dead can't smile, but I've seen one that did. The road was slick that night, rain tapering off into a mist that hovered low across the asphalt. The smell of wet leaves drifted through the crack in my window, sweet and faintly metallic. I'm Lauren Price, 28 hospice nurse in Maple Hollow. Maine, most nights I drive home long after midnight, tired enough to forget my own name. I keep the radio low, just enough to blur the silence. I like the company of soft noise, the hum of tires, the distant rhythm of wipers. After 12 hours surrounded by dying breath, it feels like proof the world's still alive. That night felt heavier. The air was too still, the kind that settles right before thunder. I could taste the storm building, the faint charge of ozone and gasoline from the nearby truck stop. I rubbed my neck trying to stay awake. My shift had been brutal. 2 new admissions, 3 deaths, 1 family screaming that I'd given up too soon. It's always like that. Someone always wants a villain. I told myself I'd sleep in tomorrow. Maybe cook breakfast with Eli if he wasn't still upset. We'd fought that morning, something about how I bring work home. But that's the thing about death. Once it clings to you, it doesn't wash off. I blinked, focusing on the narrow cone of headlights cutting through fog. Trees on both sides pressed close, black silhouettes dripping with rain. Then I saw it. Movement. In the mirror, a flicker of pale skin in the back seat. I almost didn't look. The body reacts before the brain can reason, muscles tightening, heartbeat stumbling. My eyes darted to the rearview, and I saw her, a woman, sitting behind me. Head tilted, hair matted against her face, lips parted in a slow, deliberate smile. For a moment I thought I was dreaming. I blinked, glanced back over my shoulder. Empty. When I looked forward again, the car swerved. Tires hissed across wet pavement, the steering wheel jerking in my hands. My breath came fast, fogging the glass. The mirror was empty. Just me. I slowed down, pulse hammering against my ribs. "You're overtired," I whispered. "You're just overtired." I'd seen worse. Patients who stared at ceilings, whispering to shadows that no one else could see. I knew what sleep deprivation could do. Still, I couldn't shake the image. That smile. Crooked, familiar. The dashboard clock blinked. 12:44 a.m. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. A single notification lit the screen from an unknown number. "Thanks." For the ride home, I almost dropped it. That was what Marianne used to say. Marianne, my last patient, 76, lung cancer. Sweet, stubborn, funny in the way people are when they know the end is close. Every night when I tucked her in, she'd murmur, "Thanks for the ride home," like she was already halfway gone. She died 2 nights ago. My throat went dry. I pulled over to the shoulder, engine idling, rain whispering against the roof. The phone slipped from my fingers into the dark. I didn't reach for it. The smell in the car changed, soft antiseptic over something sour, like hospital bleach mixed with rot. I turned off the radio. Silence bloomed too loud. Then from behind me, a voice, soft, close. "You forgot my smile." My hands froze on the steering wheel. The sound was faint, half air, half memory. I stared straight ahead, too afraid to move. The rearview mirror fogged slowly, a thin sheen of moisture spreading across the glass. Then from the inside, a handprint pressed against it. 5 fingers dragging down, leaving trails in the condensation. My reflection blurred beneath it. I whispered, "Marianne." Before I could stop myself, no answer, just the rhythmic tap of rain. I threw the car into drive. The tires spun on the slick road before catching. I didn't care about speed limits or sanity anymore. I needed light, people, anything. The highway stretched ahead. Black road, white lines, nothing else. Every time I blinked, the world shifted. Headlights flickered. The forest leaned closer. And in every reflection, rear view, side mirror, window glass, her face hovered behind mine. The same gentle smile. The same eyes that never closed. I turned the mirrors down. Every single one. It didn't help. The radio clicked on by itself. Static filled the car, faint voices beneath it. Then one word broke through, soft and certain. "Stop." I pressed the gas harder. The road didn't end. It just kept going, identical trees, identical turns. A loop without an edge. I whispered, "Wake up." But the world didn't shift. The air turned colder. My breath came out white. My skin prickled as though someone was leaning over my shoulder, breathing against my neck. The reflection in the windshield changed. Two faces now, mine and hers. Her head beside mine, mouth stretching wider. The static deepened. Beneath it, I could hear the slow rhythm of her breathing. "Why are you here?" I whispered. The voice that answered wasn't through the speakers. It was inside the car. "You left before I finished." A memory surfaced. That last night. Marianne gripping my hand, whispering something I couldn't quite catch before she slipped away. The heart monitor beeped once, flatlined. I'd closed her eyes, but now I remembered. They hadn't stayed shut. She'd smiled. The wipers screeched once, long and slow, smearing water across glass. My headlights flickered. For one heartbeat, the world outside the car vanished, replaced by white light and shadowed figures standing in rows along the road. Patients. All of them. Faces I knew. They smiled, identical, heads tilted at the same impossible angle. When the light steadied, the road was empty again. I was crying without realizing it. The tears were warm against cold skin. "Please," I whispered, "just let me go home." The radio whispered back, "Keep driving, or I'll show you where we stopped." I didn't understand what she meant, not until the next flash of lightning lit the road ahead. There was a car, my car, crashed into a guardrail, windshield shattered inward. Inside it, someone slumped over the wheel. Me. The world tilted. The steering wheel felt loose in my hands. The engine hummed, but the sound was wrong, hollow, distant, like it was coming from underwater. The reflection in the glass smiled again. I screamed, or thought I did. The sound barely left my throat. The figure in the back seat leaned forward, hand brushing my shoulder. Her touch was ice. "You forgot my smile." And when I looked up, the mirror wasn't showing the road anymore. It was showing that same wreck, the same broken body, the same smile frozen on my own dead face. Rain started again, gentle, rhythmic, the sound almost peaceful. I turned off the engine. Silence. The mirror cleared slowly, but my reflection didn't come back, only hers. Mouth wide, teeth blackened, eyes empty. I shut my eyes and waited for the thunder. It never came. When I finally opened them, the car was still moving. The headlights cut through nothing. The radio whispered her laugh, soft, wheezing, endless. Now I drive in silence, no music, no mirrors. I tape cardboard over the rear view, keep the side mirrors turned toward the ground. Because every time I catch my reflection in a window, a puddle, a patient's open eyes, there's another smile behind mine. And sometimes, when I blink, I see her sitting there again, in the back seat, waiting. Phones don't scare me, they never have, but that night, they should have. The storm had followed me out of Pine Brook. Not a loud, violent storm, just a steady whisper of snow like someone breathing against the glass. The canyon road was narrow, twisting between walls of rock and pine. The headlights caught flakes in slow motion, turning the world into one long tunnel of white. I was 30, a radio technician. Late nights were nothing new. After years of crawling through signal towers and emergency frequency tests, darkness had become background noise to me. But that night felt different. The dashboard clock read 1:12 a.m. The heater purred softly. The car smelled like old coffee and cold air. I was halfway through the canyon when the silence started pressing in. No music, no traffic, no sound except the hum of the tires on ice. The kind of quiet that makes you aware of every breath you take. I reached for my phone, thumb hovering over the Bluetooth icon. Maybe a little music would help keep me awake. That's when the call came. The screen blinked to life. Incoming call, Unknown number. I hesitated for half a second, then swiped to answer. Hello? Static. Then, under the hiss, I heard a voice, my voice. Aaron, whatever you do, don't take the shortcut through Raven Road. The line clicked off. I froze, because I'd just been thinking about that shortcut. I drove this canyon twice a week, and Raven Road, if you could call it that, cut 15 minutes off the trip. Locals said it used to be an old logging route before it washed out. Dangerous in the snow, sure, but not impossible, and I remembered something else, something that hit me, like a punch in the gut. I'd already left that same voicemail earlier that night to myself, as a joke, testing an audio filter I'd been building for work. A ghost radio effect for the local station's Halloween show. I'd said the exact same words, but this wasn't a recording, this was live. I looked at the phone. The call log showed nothing. No missed calls, no recent voicemails. Just a single new file sitting in my voice memos folder. Tomorrow. I pressed play. My voice again, strained, whispering, barely audible under static. It wasn't a shortcut. It was a loop. The air in the car seemed to thicken. I turned down the heater, even though I could see my breath fogging the glass. Snow swirled harder outside like it was alive, drawn toward the beams of my headlights. Then, through the fog, I saw the road sign. Raven Road, next right. The metal glistened under a thin crust of ice, the exact road I'd been warned about. The headlights flickered. The radio hummed softly, and then through the static my voice came again. You didn't listen. The steering wheel trembled beneath my hands. My tires slid an inch over the slick pavement. I slammed the brakes, heart pounding. Every direction looked the same. Dark pines, falling snow, endless curves. But the sign stayed where it was, glowing faintly in the high beams. I should have turned back. I know that now. But something about the way the snow drifted toward the right shoulder, piling like soft white arrows, made it look like the only way forward. I eased off the brake. The GPS screen flickered on its own, recalculating. Then, rerouting to Raven Road. The voice that followed wasn't the usual GPS tone. It was mine. I laughed, out loud, because what else could I do? The kind of tired laugh that sounds like surrender. Okay, I muttered. Fine. One wrong turn, then I'm going home. The tires crunched over the edge of the pavement and onto the narrow dirt track. The trees closed in immediately. No guardrails. No reflectors. No sign of another car ever having been there. Just the sound of snow brushing against branches and the occasional creak of the chassis over frozen ground. I tried to keep my eyes on the road, but it was hard not to notice the way the darkness seemed to move between the trees. The GPS light flickered. Proceed for 1.4 miles. The voice was clearer now. Not mechanical. Human. My throat tightened. It wasn't repeating directions anymore. It was whispering something else. Don't stop. I turned down the volume, but the voice grew louder. You're close. The snow thickened. Visibility dropped to a few yards. I leaned forward, trying to see past the hood. Then a shape. In the road, a person. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded sideways, stopping just short of the figure. It was a woman, tall, hair hanging in wet clumps. She was turned away, standing perfectly still in the middle of the lane. Her clothes were soaked. Something about her stance felt familiar. I cracked the window. The air was sharp enough to burn my lungs. Hey, you need help? No answer. She didn't move. Just stood there, her head tilted slightly to the side, like she was listening. My headlights flickered again, and in that moment, she turned her face toward me. It was my face. My reflection, but drained of everything alive. Skin gray, eyes glassy, lips cracked open in a smile that didn't belong to me. The radio hissed. It wasn't a shortcut. I threw the car in reverse, but the tires spun uselessly against the slick ground. The woman's mouth moved, but I couldn't hear her through the static. I rolled up the window and slammed the locks. Bicker. Lights inside the car dimmed to a dull orange glow. Looked in the rearview mirror. The road behind me was gone, just snow, trees, blackness. I pressed the gas again, harder this time. The car lurched forward, tires clawing at the frozen dirt. When I looked up again, she was gone. The road stretched empty ahead, a narrow line disappearing into fog. I drove. Didn't think. Didn't blink, just drove. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. The world outside never changed. Every bend in the road looked the same. Every tree seemed to lean the same way. Then faintly through the snow, a shape appeared ahead. A car. Headlights on. Same make. Same color. Mine. I followed the curve, heart hammering, and realized the truth too late. I was staring at myself again. The same car. The same license plate. The same dent in the fender. The other me was slumped over the wheel, face hidden by the glare. And then the radio whispered, barely audible under the static, "Loop complete." Something shifted in the air, a deep vibration that rattled the steering column. My phone lit up. Incoming call. Unknown number. I didn't answer, but the ringing didn't stop. It echoed inside my skull, each tone louder than the last. When it finally went silent, I checked the screen. New recording. Tomorrow. My hands shook as I hit play. My voice, hoarse, desperate. It wasn't a shortcut. It was a loop. The headlights flared white. The trees folded in, swallowing everything. Then, nothing. When I opened my eyes, morning light spilled across the snow. My car was parked at the edge of a narrow dirt path. The engine still running, the windshield coated in frost. The GPS showed a blank map. No roads, no coordinates, just a single word in the corner of the screen. Rerouting. They said they found me like that. Engine idling. Phone in my lap. Mouth open like I'd been. Mid-sentence, they said there was no sign of a crash. No footprints. No other vehicles. Just tire marks leading nowhere, stopping right where the road disappears into forest. I try not to think about that night. But sometimes, when the phone rings during my drive home, I still hear my voice beneath the static. "Aaron, whatever you do, don't take the shortcut through Raven Road." And no matter where I am, I always check the time. It's always 1:12 a.m. GPS says 40 minutes home. That's what it always says. The rain was steady when I walked out of the hospital. Not heavy, not dramatic, just that slow, endless drizzle that makes everything feel like it's dissolving. The parking lot lights turned the wet asphalt into a sheet of glass, and for a second I could see myself staring back in the reflection. Pale, exhausted, hollow-eyed. I'm Nora Leland, 31, ER nurse from Raven County, Missouri. I'd just finished a double shift, 14 hours straight, and the hum of hospital machines still echoed somewhere in the back of my head. The air outside smelled like wet concrete and antiseptic. My hands smelled like latex gloves no matter how many times I washed them. When I finally got into my car, I just sat there for a minute with my forehead against the steering wheel. The clock on the dash read 1:47 a.m. The world outside was quiet except for the rain whispering against the windshield. I typed my address into the GPS even though I didn't need to. Habit, I guess. The screen lit up my tired face. Route 12, 40 minutes home. That's what it always said. The wipers moved back and forth like a heartbeat as I pulled out of the parking lot. The hospital lights disappeared behind me. For a while it was fine, empty road. Dark forest. The steady hum of tires on wet pavement. I should have been listening to music, but every song I tried sounded too alive for the silence. I ended up turning the radio off completely. Just me and the road, and the rain, always the rain. Halfway down Route 12, my GPS glitched. It started as a flicker, a white flash across the map. Then the voice cut out mid-sentence. I tapped the screen. It blinked twice, then rerouted itself. Faster route found. Turn left onto Hollow Bend Lane. I frowned. I'd driven this road hundreds of times. There was no left turn. Not here. The screen zoomed in, showing a faint gray line branching off the main road. unnamed. I slowed down, squinting through the rain, and there it was, a break in the trees that hadn't been there a second ago, a narrow stretch of gravel disappearing into the fog. No sign, no lights, just darkness. The GPS voice repeated, softer this time, almost like it was whispering. Turn left onto Hollow Bend Lane. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the power button, but something, curiosity, maybe, kept me from turning it off. It didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like an invitation. I turned. The sound changed immediately. The steady hiss of the highway gave way to the crunch of gravel. The forest seemed to close in around me. The trees taller, denser. My headlights caught the rain turning into mist, curling and twisting like smoke. After a few hundred feet, the signal bar on my phone vanished. No service. I told myself it didn't matter. It was just a shortcut, a faster route home, but the air felt wrong, thicker, colder. And beneath the hum of my engine, I heard it, a faint hiss like someone breathing through glass. I cracked the window to listen, but the sound didn't change. It wasn't coming from outside, it was coming from the car. I shook my head, forcing a laugh. Just road noise, just exhaustion. Then I saw the lights ahead, 2 faint red dots through the fog. Taillights. I wasn't alone. The relief was instant. Another driver, maybe taking the same detour. Someone else who trusted the GPS. As I got closer, I realized the car ahead was the same model as mine. Same shape, same color. A silver sedan. I flashed my brights once. No response. The car maintained its distance, steady as a metronome. When I slowed down, it slowed too. When I turned slightly to the left to avoid a pothole, it mirrored me exactly. The hairs on my arms lifted. I gripped the wheel tighter. Another turn appeared up ahead, one that hadn't been on the map. The other car took it without hesitation. I followed. The forest pressed closer now. The trees leaned over the road, their branches like fingers brushing the roof of the car. That's when I saw it. A road sign half buried in mud. Its letters faded but still readable. Hollow Bend Lane. My stomach tightened. The GPS voice crackled. Distorted. You have arrived. The other car stopped. I eased to a halt behind it, engine idling. The rain had stopped completely. The only sound was that faint hiss again. Louder now. Closer. The driver's door of the other car opened. A woman stepped out. She was wearing the same jacket as me. Same hair. Same everything. Even from that distance, I knew exactly what I was looking at. Myself. She turned toward me and smiled. The headlights flickered once, twice, then both cars went dark. For a moment, the world disappeared. Only the sound of breathing remained, 2 sets, mine and hers. I don't remember what happened next. I just remember light, too bright, too close, and the feeling of falling even though I was still sitting in the driver's seat. When I woke up, it was dawn. The rain was gone. The road was dry. I was back on Route 12, parked on the shoulder. The GPS screen was cracked, the map frozen on a blank white page. Route complete. No Hollow Bend Lane. No detour. No tire tracks behind me. The clock on the dash read 5:32 a.m. I should have been home hours ago. I drove the rest of the way in silence, too afraid to touch the GPS again. When I pulled into my driveway, everything looked normal. But when I stepped out of the car, I noticed something strange. Mud splattered across the tires, thick and dark. The kind of mud that doesn't exist on paved roads. And faintly carved into the dirt on the bumper, 3 letters. HBL. I didn't tell anyone. What would I even say? I tried to convince myself I'd fallen asleep at the wheel, that it had all been a dream. But dreams don't leave mud. They don't crack screens. And they don't whisper your name when you turn the car off, because that's what I heard the next night. I'd worked another shift, shorter this time. Got home by midnight, parked the car and sat for a while in the dark, engine off. Then, faintly, from the broken GPS speaker, Nora, soft, drawn out, like someone saying it from underwater. I unplugged the device, threw it onto the passenger seat. It stayed silent for the rest of the night, but the next morning, when I got in for work, it lit up by itself. Faster route found. Turn left onto Hollow Bend Lane. I yanked the cord. The screen went black. For a few seconds, I just sat there, breathing hard, trying not to look at the road outside. But when I finally started driving, I couldn't help glancing in the rearview mirror. And for a moment, just a split second, I saw taillights in the distance. 2 red dots, glowing faintly through the morning mist. Following, I blinked, and they were gone. Now, every time my GPS says rerouting, I pull over. I wait. I breathe because sometimes out of the corner of my eye, I still see them. Those taillights waiting at the next turn. GPS says 40 minutes home. That's what it always says. The rain was steady when I walked out of the hospital. Not heavy, not dramatic, just that slow, endless drizzle that makes everything feel like it's dissolving. The parking lot lights turned the wet asphalt into a sheet of glass, and for a second I could see myself staring back in the reflection. Pale, exhausted, hollow-eyed. I'm Nora Leland, 31, ER nurse from Raven County, Missouri. I'd just finished a double shift, 14 hours straight, and the hum of hospital machines still echoed somewhere in the back of my head. The air outside smelled like wet concrete and antiseptic. My hands smelled like latex gloves no matter how many times I washed them. When I finally got into my car, I just sat there for a minute with my forehead against the steering wheel. The clock on the dash read 1:47 a.m. The world outside was quiet except for the rain whispering against the windshield. I typed my address into the GPS even though I didn't need to. Habit, I guess. The screen lit up my tired face. Route 12, 40 minutes home. That's what it always said. The wipers moved back and forth like a heartbeat as I pulled out of the parking lot. The hospital lights disappeared behind me. For a while it was fine, empty road. Dark forest. The steady hum of tires on wet pavement. I should have been listening to music, but every song I tried sounded too alive for the silence. I ended up turning the radio off completely. Just me and the road, and the rain, always the rain. Halfway down Route 12, my GPS glitched. It started as a flicker, a white flash across the map. Then the voice cut out mid-sentence. I tapped the screen. It blinked twice, then rerouted itself. Faster route found. Turn left onto Hollow Bend Lane. I frowned. I'd driven this road hundreds of times. There was no left turn. Not here. The screen zoomed in, showing a faint gray line branching off the main road, unnamed. I slowed down, squinting through the rain, and there it was, a break in the trees that hadn't been there a second ago. A narrow stretch of gravel disappearing into the fog. No sign, no lights, just darkness. The GPS voice repeated, softer this time, almost like it was whispering. Turn left onto Hollow Bend Lane. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the power button. But something, curiosity, maybe, kept me from turning it off. It didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like an invitation. I turned. The sound changed immediately. The steady hiss of the highway gave way to the crunch of gravel. The forest seemed to close in around me. The trees taller, denser. My headlights caught the rain turning into mist, curling and twisting like smoke. After a few hundred feet, the signal bar on my phone vanished. No service. I told myself it didn't matter. It was just a shortcut, a faster route home, but the air felt wrong, thicker, colder. And beneath the hum of my engine, I heard it, a faint hiss like someone breathing through glass. I cracked the window to listen, but the sound didn't change. It wasn't coming from outside, it was coming from the car. I shook my head, forcing a laugh. Just road noise, just exhaustion. Then I saw the lights ahead, 2 faint red dots through the fog. Taillights. I wasn't alone. The relief was instant. Another driver, maybe taking the same detour. Someone else who'd trusted the GPS. As I got closer, I realized the car ahead was the same model as mine. Same shape, same color. A silver sedan. I flashed my brights once. No response. The car maintained its distance, steady as a metronome. When I slowed down, it slowed too. When I turned slightly to the left to avoid a pothole, it mirrored me exactly. The hairs on my arms lifted. I gripped the wheel tighter. Another turn appeared up ahead, one that hadn't been on the map. The other car took it without hesitation. I followed. The forest pressed closer now. The trees leaned over the road, their branches like fingers brushing the roof of the car. That's when I saw it. A road sign half buried in mud. Its letters faded but still readable. Hollow Bend Lane. My stomach tightened. The GPS voice crackled. Distorted. You have arrived. The other car stopped. I eased to a halt behind it. Engine idling. The rain had stopped completely. The only sound was that faint hiss again. Louder now. Closer. The driver's door of the other car opened. A woman stepped out. She was wearing the same jacket as me. Same hair. Same everything. Even from that distance, I knew exactly what I was looking at. Myself. She turned toward me and smiled. The headlights flickered once, twice, then both cars went dark. For a moment, the world disappeared. Only the sound of breathing remained, two sets, mine and hers. I don't remember what happened next. I just remember light, too bright, too close, and the feeling of falling even though I was still sitting in the driver's seat. When I woke up, it was dawn. The rain was gone. The road was dry. I was back on Route 12, parked on the shoulder. The GPS screen was cracked, the map frozen on a blank white page. Route complete. No Hollow Bend Lane. No detour. No tire tracks behind me. The clock on the dash read 5:32 a.m. I should have been home hours ago. I drove the rest of the way in silence, too afraid to touch the GPS again. When I pulled into my driveway, everything looked normal. But when I stepped out of the car, I noticed something strange. Mud splattered across the tires, thick and dark. The kind of mud that doesn't exist on paved roads. And faintly carved into the dirt on the bumper, 3 letters. HBL. I didn't tell anyone. What would I even say? I tried to convince myself I'd fallen asleep at the wheel, that it had all been a dream. But dreams don't leave mud. They don't crack screens, and they don't whisper your name when you turn the car off, because that's what I heard the next night. I'd worked another shift, shorter this time. Got home by midnight, parked the car and sat for a while in the dark, engine off. Then, faintly, from the broken GPS speaker, Nora, soft, drawn out, like someone saying it from underwater. I unplugged the device, threw it onto the passenger seat. It stayed silent for the rest of the night, but the next morning, when I got in for work, it lit up by itself. Faster route found. Turn left onto Hollow Bend Lane. I yanked the cord. The screen went black. For a few seconds, I just sat there, breathing hard, trying not to look at the road outside. But when I finally started driving, I couldn't help glancing in the rearview mirror. And for a moment, just a split second, I saw taillights in the distance. 2 red dots, glowing faintly through the morning mist. Following. I blinked, and they were gone. Now, every time my GPS says rerouting, I pull over. I wait. I breathe because sometimes out of the corner of my eye, I still see them. Those taillights waiting at the next turn. The first thing I noticed were the headlights. Bright, steady, always 2 car lengths behind me. The road stretched out like a black ribbon through the forest. Wet asphalt reflecting light in fractured streaks. Pine trees pressing close on both sides. The kind of road that feels like it never ends, just folds back into itself under the fog. I'm Liam Torres, 29 night shift mechanic from Clearview, Oregon. I was driving home after closing up shop. A 40-minute trip through back roads I could drive blindfolded. I've done it hundreds of times. Same road, same silence, but that night, it felt different. The forest was too still, the air too heavy, and those headlights, they never blinked out of my mirror. At first I figured it was someone else heading home late. Happens all the time out here. Maybe another guy off the night shift or a long-haul trucker avoiding the highway. But when I slowed down, they slowed too. When I sped up, they matched me perfectly. I flicked my turn signal once, pretending to take an exit that wasn't there. The lights followed. I took another turn, sharper this time, tires hissing against the slick road. Still there. The headlights didn't waver. Not closer, not farther, just steady. That's when it hit me. I hadn't seen a single other car the whole drive. Not one. Just those lights. The thought sat heavy in my chest. I tried to shake it off, but the longer they stayed behind me, the more wrong it felt. The fog thickened. My headlights caught it in beams, turning the air white and grainy. The smell of wet pine filled the car. Cold seeped through the vents. I gripped the wheel tighter, eyes flicking from the mirror to the road. The hum of my tires grew louder in the silence, steady, hypnotic. I told myself to pull over, let them pass. That was logical, so I did. I eased onto the shoulder, gravel crunching beneath my tires. The other car slowed, its beams cutting through the mist until it stopped 50 feet behind me. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. Nothing. The headlights stayed on. No engine noise. No door opening. Just light, steady and white, burning into the mirrors. The kind of brightness that felt like it was watching. I turned off my engine. The sudden silence rang in my ears. My breath fogged the windshield. My pulse sounded too loud. I stared at those lights until the edges of my vision began to blur. "Hey!" I shouted through the open window, voice cracking in the cold. "You okay back there?" No answer. Just a faint hum, maybe my own engine cooling. Maybe not. Then the lights blinked once and went out. Darkness swallowed everything. The kind that doesn't just hide the world. It erases it. I couldn't even see the trees, only the faint outline of my own hands on the steering wheel. The air smelled like metal and rain. Something in my chest twisted. That quiet, animal panic that tells you something's watching, even when you can't see it. I reached for the ignition, heart hammering. The key turned, nothing, no click, no whine, just silence. Then, light again. Only this time it wasn't behind me, it was inside. The dashboard glowed faint blue, the air vents hummed softly, and through the rearview mirror I saw them, 2 beams of light shining from the trunk, like something alive was breathing beneath the metal. I froze, my throat locked. The glow pulsed once, faint and rhythmic, in sync with my heartbeat. The car shuddered. The radio clicked on by itself. Static filled the cab, slow and heavy like someone breathing through water. Then a voice whispered through it. "Thanks for the ride." Liam. The words stretched out, distorted, but clear enough to sink into me. My whole body went cold. I slammed the door open and stumbled out into the dark. The gravel shifted beneath my boots, echoing like footsteps. I spun around, but there was nothing behind me. No car, no headlights. Just fog curling across the road, pale and silent. My car's trunk glowed faintly from within, soft light spilling through the seams. It looked almost alive. Then, a sound, faint, slow. Knock. From inside the trunk. I took a step backward. Knock. Knock. The sound grew louder, more urgent. The air smelled different now sweet, like rot and gasoline mixed. I fumbled for my phone, flashlight on, screen shaking in my hand. The beam cut through the fog. For a second, I thought I saw movement behind the trees. A shape, pale and still, standing between the trunks. Then the trunk of my car clicked. Not open, just unlocked. I couldn't breathe. The radio inside was still hissing softly, static rising and falling like a heartbeat. Then the voice came again. "Open it." Liam. I don't remember deciding to move. I just found myself walking toward the back of the car. The metal gleamed wet under the flashlight. My reflection in the bumper looked wrong, stretched, delayed, smiling a split second late. The glow from inside pulsed brighter now, light leaking through every seam. It didn't feel like something trapped. It felt like something waiting. I reached for the handle. My hand hovered over it, trembling. The air buzzed with static. And just before I touched the latch, the headlights behind me came back on. Blinding. I spun, arm over my face. The road was empty. No sound. No engine. Just those 2 white beams cutting through the fog. I blinked and realized the light wasn't coming from behind me anymore. It was coming from the forest. Dozens of pairs of headlights, deep between the trees, flickering on one by one. Each pair steady, each one aimed at me. The forest glowed white. The trunk behind me clicked open. Light poured out, flooding the ground at my feet, and the voice whispered again. You shouldn't have stopped. I ran, didn't look back, didn't think. Branches whipped my arms, my legs. The fog thickened, choking me as I stumbled through the trees. When I finally broke through to the next clearing, my knees gave out. Silence. The lights were gone. My car was gone. Only the smell remained. Rain, metal, and that sickly sweet rot. I walked until I hit the main road. A passing truck picked me up near dawn. I didn't tell the driver what happened. I just stared out the window, watching every light that passed. By the time I made it home, the morning sun felt wrong, too pale, too weak. I slept for 12 hours straight. When I woke, the house felt colder than it should have been. I told myself it was over, until I walked out to the driveway. My car was there, perfectly clean, keys in the ignition, and in the rearview mirror, 2 faint white orbs of light glowing from the back seat. Now, whenever I drive at night, I keep the rearview tilted down, because sometimes, when I forget, I still see them, those headlights, burning soft and steady from inside the car. It was past midnight when the fuel light came on. That dull orange glow on the dashboard, the one that always feels like a warning, not a reminder. The highway stretched out like a scar through the Nevada desert, flat and endless. I'd been driving for hours, eyes half on the road, half on the reflection of my own headlights bouncing off the faded paint lines. No towns, no lights, just darkness and the kind that feels alive. I'm Travis Keene, 35, traveling back from a late service call in Hollow Ridge. A busted satellite dish, 2 hours of silence, and a long drive home. My body was running on gas station coffee and the hum of my truck's engine. The desert has its own kind of quiet. Not peaceful, suffocating. It presses against you until the only thing you can hear is your pulse. When the fuel light came on, I swore under my breath. The next station was supposed to be 30 miles back. I hadn't seen another car in at least an hour. Then, just when I thought I'd have to sleep in the cab until morning, I saw it, a flicker in the distance. At first, I thought it was lightning, but the sky was clear. Then it came again, steady, rhythmic. A sign. Gas. Food. Open. The arrow blinked faintly through the dark, pointing down a side road. I almost laughed. I hadn't passed a single billboard or sign on this route all night, but suddenly there was a station just when I needed it most. I turned onto the dirt road. The tires crunched through gravel. The air through the open window smelled like dust and metal, sharp, electric. After a minute or two, the light grew clearer. A small gas station, no brand name, no logo. Just a single bulb buzzing above the pumps and a flickering open sign behind the window. The whole place looked like it had been built before color existed. I pulled up to the nearest pump. The needle on my gauge was kissing empty. When I stepped out, the night hit me, dry and heavy, the kind of heat that makes the air hum. The smell was strange. Not just oil and gasoline, but something sweet beneath it, rotting fruit. I tried to shake it off, popped open the gas cap, and reached for the nozzle. It was already in the pump, and it clicked on by itself. Fuel started flowing. The handle locked in place. I froze. Then I heard a faint sound behind me, the chime of a door opening. The station's lights flickered on, one by one like the place was waking up. I stepped inside. The air was colder in there. Still smelled wrong though, like burnt oil and something spoiled hiding under it. The man behind the counter looked up. Thin face, eyes too bright, smile too quick. He didn't blink for a long time. Long night? He asked. His voice didn't match his face. Too calm, too even, like someone reading from a page. I nodded, handed him a 20. He stared at it. Didn't take it. Won't be needing that soon, he said. I laughed, trying to brush it off. Yeah, well, just need a full tank. He didn't move. Just kept smiling. The fluorescent light above us stuttered, once, twice, and in that flicker, I caught something in the reflection behind him. His reflection. It was still smiling. But he wasn't. The real man's face had gone blank, eyes fixed on me. The smile stayed only in the glass. I stepped back. My throat felt dry. That's when I heard it, a faint metallic clunk outside. The pump. It had stopped by itself. I turned around. Through the front window, I saw my car door hanging open. Someone was sitting in the driver's seat. I bolted outside. The heat hit me again. Thicker this time, like breathing through sand. The seat was empty, but the air smelled like smoke now. Faint, familiar, like burned rubber. I looked down. The ground around the car was wet, dark stains leading away from the pump. Gasoline. I spun toward the station. The man was gone. The door hung open, swinging gently in the wind. Inside, everything looked different. Dust covered the shelves. The candy displays were cracked. The soda cooler was empty, door hanging open. The fluorescent lights buzzed weakly, flickering over cobwebs that shouldn't have been there minutes ago. I walked up to the counter. The register was rusted, half buried under a layer of grime, and taped to it was a photo. It was me, standing at the pump, smiling. I stumbled back, the edge of the counter scraping my palm. I didn't remember taking that picture. I didn't even remember stopping here before. My hands were shaking. I ran back outside, fumbling for my keys. The car door slammed itself shut. I yanked it open again, heart hammering. The seats were empty. But my wallet was gone. My breath fogged the glass, even though the desert air was still warm. Something moved behind me. A shadow, soft and slow, sliding across the pumps. I turned, but there was nothing there. Only the sign buzzing faintly above me. Open. Except now the letters didn't look right. The last one had burned out. Ope. It pulsed almost like it was breathing. I didn't wait to see more. I threw myself into the driver's seat, slammed the key into the ignition. The engine coughed, sputtered, then caught. I looked up one last time at the window of the station. The man was standing there again. Same smile. And behind him, in the glass, I saw a second reflection, mine, standing beside him, smiling too. I floored the gas. The tires screamed against the gravel. The station disappeared behind me in the mirror, swallowed by the dark. But as I hit the main road, I caught something in the rearview that made my stomach drop. The reflection didn't match my speed. It lagged behind, just half a second too slow, like the world was trying to catch up. I didn't stop driving until I saw the lights of a diner glowing on the horizon. I pulled in, heart still racing, hands trembling. The neon sign buzzed weakly, its letters half burned out, "Eat here," flashing one syllable at a time. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and grease. The waitress smiled, normal, tired, real. "Rough night?" she asked. I nodded, ordered black coffee, and didn't say much else. When she brought the cup, I noticed something sticking out from underneath the saucer. Photo me, at the counter of the gas station, smiling. The coffee trembled in my hand. I looked up to ask where she'd found it, but the seat across from me wasn't empty anymore. A man sat there, thin face, bright eyes, smiling too quickly. "Long night?" he asked. I dropped the photo. The smell hit me again, burnt oil and something sweet, rotting underneath. I looked toward the window. Through the glass, the parking lot was empty, except for one thing, my car, still at the pump, the fuel nozzle hanging from its side, and my reflection, standing next to it, smiling just a little too far behind. Long before that night, my life was simple. Predictable, even. I worked the evening shift at a small cafe off Willow Creek Road, the kind of place where locals came more for conversation than coffee. My world revolved around routine. Wake up late, open the shop at 3, serve lattes to college kids and retirees, close up around 11, and walk home under the glow of street lamps and moonlight. It wasn't glamorous, but I liked it that way. My cottage sat near the edge of town, tucked behind a stretch of woods that most people avoided after dark. The house was old, a leftover from my grandparents' generation. Creaky floors, chipped paint, and a porch that groaned under the slightest weight. I lived alone unless you counted my cat Finch, who mostly kept to himself. That November night, the rain hadn't stopped since sunset. By the time I locked the cafe door, my jeans clung to my legs and my umbrella had lost its battle with the wind. The walk home was only 20 minutes, but it felt like a mile of cold needles on my skin. When I finally reached my porch, I let out a shaky breath of relief. The air smelled like wet pine and earth, clean, familiar. I hung my coat, changed into dry clothes, and set water to boil for tea. Finch meowed from his perch by the window, tail flicking, eyes fixed outside. "What's wrong, buddy?" I asked, rubbing his head. He didn't move, just stared. I brushed it off. The storm was loud, probably just the sound of branches hitting the siding. I curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, and turned on the small lamp beside me. Thunder rumbled in the distance, deep and slow. The rain against the windows almost felt comforting, until I heard it. A sound from the porch. Slow, deliberate creaks, wood groaning under the weight of something heavy. I muted the TV and held my breath. 1, 2, 3 steps. Then silence. Probably the wind, I whispered to myself, though even saying it out loud didn't make it true. I peeked through the curtain. The porch light flickered once, twice, and then went dark. The yard was nothing but black water and shadows. Nobody there. When the bulb flickered back to life, I froze. Across the wooden planks of my porch were wet footprints, large, bare, leading toward the front door. My heart climbed into my throat. I stepped back from the window, every nerve in my body suddenly alive. I locked the deadbolt, then the chain. Checked every window. Finch darted under the couch as if confirming what I already feared. Something wasn't right. And then came the second sound. A faint scraping from the back door. It was soft at first, like someone dragging something across the glass. Then came a single knock. Slow. Measured. That was when the kettle screamed, startling me so hard I almost dropped my phone. I dialed 911 with trembling fingers. The dispatcher's calm voice barely cut through the pounding in my ears. "Ma'am, stay inside. Officers are on the way. Do not open any doors." I didn't. I stood frozen in the middle of my living room, eyes darting between the front and back doors. The scraping stopped. For 10 long minutes, the world was nothing but thunder and silence. Then were flashing red and blue lights through the rain. When the police arrived, they found the footprints leading off the porch and into the woods. One of them shone his flashlight over the glass near the couch. There, smeared in mud, was a single handprint. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. The next morning, sunlight poured weakly through the clouds. The ground was still wet, glistening with puddles, but the world seemed too quiet, like the rain had washed away all the noise, leaving only unease behind. 2 officers came back around noon to take a statement. Officer Hart, tall and calm-eyed, sat at my kitchen table, jotting notes as I recounted every sound, every flicker, every detail. "You didn't see anyone?" he asked. "No," I said. "Just the footprints." He nodded slowly. "No sign of forced entry." "You sure all doors were locked?" "Yes, I checked twice." He exchanged a glance with his partner. "Could have been a drifter. We get some passing through after storms. Maybe looking for shelter." That explanation made sense, too much sense. It was easier to believe in a harmless stranger than something darker. Still, when I looked out at the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever had been there wasn't just passing through. That evening, I replaced the porch light and bought new locks. My friend Kara from the cafe dropped by with dinner. "You okay?" she asked, setting the takeout bag on the counter. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." She frowned. "You should stay with someone for a few nights." "I'll be fine." But the truth was I hadn't been fine since that handprint. Every creak in the floorboards, every flicker of shadow set my heart racing. Later that night, as I tried to sleep, I heard something again. A faint hum like static or low whispering coming from the porch. I held my breath and listened. It stopped. When I finally fell asleep near dawn, I dreamt of footprints in the rain, circling the house. 2 days later, a man came into the cafe asking for directions. He was tall, with a wet jacket and a quiet smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hey," he said to me. "You know where Willow Creek Road connects to Old Mill Lane?" Something about his voice made my stomach twist. Calm. Too calm. "Yeah," I said, pointing vaguely toward the north window. "About 2 miles down, then left." He nodded, thanked me, and left. But as he pushed the door open, I noticed the mud on his boots, dried in thick streaks like he'd walked through the same woods behind my house. I told Officer Hart about it the next day, but without proof there wasn't much they could do. That night I slept with a flashlight in my hand. And then around 2 a.m. I woke up to the sound of rain again, and footsteps. This time they weren't on the porch. They were inside the house. The first thing I did was grab Finch, who was hissing at the hallway. The second thing was call 911 again, whispering so low I could barely hear myself. "I think someone's inside," I said. "Stay quiet, ma'am. Officers are on the way. Can you lock yourself in a room?" I backed into the bedroom, locked the door, and crouched behind the bed. The footsteps were slow, heavy, deliberate. Then came the creak of the living room floor. A pause, then another step. My phone buzzed, Kara calling. I silenced it immediately, afraid the noise would give me away. And then, silence. The longest silence I'd ever known. I don't remember how long I waited before the sirens came again. When the officers entered, they found the front door wide open. Muddy prints led halfway across the living room, then stopped. No exit trail. No windows broken. No sign of forced entry. Like he'd vanished into the air. Hart looked at me, his face pale. "You said you saw someone?" I heard him. "He was here." He nodded slowly, as if trying to believe it. "We'll have someone watch the area for a few days." But nobody ever came back. A month later, I packed up what little I owned and left the cottage for good. Kara helped me load boxes into her truck. "You sure about this?" she asked. "Yeah, I can't stay here." I looked once more at the porch. The new bulb still flickered faintly, casting weak light over the planks. The rain had returned soft and steady, and for a moment I swore I saw a faint shape standing by the tree line. But when I blinked, it was gone. I moved into a small apartment closer to town. New locks, new neighbors. But even now, sometimes at night, when the rain starts to fall, I still think I hear it. That slow, steady creak of footsteps on old wood. And I wonder if whoever stood on my porch that night was ever caught, or if he's still out there, waiting for another light to flicker in the storm. Fear is not always paranoia. Sometimes it's your mind recognizing danger before your logic catches up. Never ignore the small signs that tell you something is wrong. Safety isn't just about locks and doors. It's about listening to the voice inside that whispers, "Leave." You never think the night's going to change your life until it does. It was late August, that heavy part of summer when the air feels like a damp towel over your face. I'd just finished the closing shift at Redwood Diner, the kind of small-town place that smells like coffee and bacon no matter the hour. My name's Akan Sophia Allenra. I'm 26 years old, still living in the same Kentucky county I'd been born in. That night I'd stayed an extra hour to help restock the walk-in fridge. Carol, my manager, was down with a summer cold and needed all the help she could get. By the time I wiped down the last table and killed the neon sign, it was close to midnight. The world outside felt hollowed out. Just the buzz of insects, the hum of the highway far off, and that faint metallic taste in the air right before rain. My route home was second nature. Cut down to Ridge Road, take the curve past the post office, and follow the back road along the tree line until I hit Maple Hollow, where my little house waited. No streetlights, no cameras, just darkness and the steady beam of my headlights carving through it. I was humming along to an old song on the radio when my engine coughed. Once, twice, then the power died like somebody had pulled a plug. The dashboard lights dimmed, and the car coasted to a stop beside a stretch of overgrown mailboxes. "Come on," I muttered, turning the key again. Click, click. Nothing. It was the kind of silence that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. I pulled my phone out of my bag, no signal. I lifted it toward the windshield, still nothing. Great. I told myself I'd wait a few minutes. Cars pass this road sometimes, mostly locals heading home from late shifts like mine. But 15 minutes went by and not a single pair of headlights appeared. Then from behind me I saw them. 2 circles of yellow light growing larger. A truck moving slow. Relief flooded me, though part of me stayed tight in the chest. The pickup pulled alongside my car, engine rumbling deep and uneven. The driver rolled down his window. A man in his 50s maybe, with a sun-creased face and the easy drawl of someone used to strangers. "You all right there, miss?" he called out. "I think so," I said, forcing a smile. "Car died on me. I'm trying to get a tow, but no service," and he nodded. "Figures. These roads'll trap a signal faster than they trap heat. I got a shop not far from here if you want. Could tow you up there and take a look." The way he said it, too easy, too practiced, made something shift inside me. I couldn't explain it, but his tone felt rehearsed. "I appreciate it," I said carefully, "but I've got family nearby. They'll come get me." He leaned a little out of the window, peering at the empty road. "Family out here?" "Yeah," I lied. A pause stretched between us. Then he smiled, small, polite, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "All right then, you take care." He drove off slowly, tires crunching gravel. I watched until the red glow of his taillights vanished around the bend. I exhaled. My hands were trembling, but I laughed under my breath. "See, Sophia? Not every stranger's a killer." That's what I told myself, until I saw the headlights again. The same truck, same yellow lights. At first, I thought maybe he'd realized I needed real help and turned around. But the longer he sat there, engine idling, lights trained on the back of my car, the faster my pulse kicked. "Okay," I whispered, "no panic, just think." I locked the doors. My fingers brushed the keys still in the ignition, but starting the car wasn't an option. The battery was gone. The truck door creaked open. I froze. Through the rearview mirror, I saw a shape, tall, broad-shouldered, step out into the glow of the headlights. He didn't call out this time. Didn't wave. Just stood there staring toward my car. I grabbed my phone again, still no service. My breath hitched, and I knew sitting there was the worst thing I could do. I remembered my dad teaching me to drive when I was 16. "If something feels wrong, trust it," he'd said. "The road will always be there. You just get yourself out first." So I did. I pushed the door open quietly, grabbed my bag, and slipped into the darkness. The tall grass brushed my jeans as I ran toward the woods. Behind me came a shout, faint but sharp. "Hey, you don't have to run." I didn't look back. My sneakers pounded the dirt shoulder, my breath coming in gasps. I hit the tree line and ducked between the trunks, pulling out my phone again. 1 bar, thank God. I dialed 911. The dispatcher answered on the second ring. 911, what's your emergency?" "My car broke down," I panted. "There's a man. He followed me. I think he's still out there. Please send someone." "Stay on the line, ma'am." "Can you describe your location?" "Somewhere off Ridge Road near the turn for Maple Hollow," I said, voice shaking. The dispatcher's tone stayed steady. "We've got units on the way. Stay hidden, stay quiet." I crouched behind a fallen log, phone pressed to my ear, trying to listen for movement. I could hear twigs snapping in the dark, slow and deliberate. 10 minutes stretched like an hour. Then I saw flashing red and blue through the trees. The man's truck lights flickered once, then went dark. When the officers reached me, I could barely speak. One of them, Officer Hale, shined a flashlight down the road. My car sat where I'd left it, engine still running. Driver's door open. They found footprints, his, mine, both leading toward the woods. His prints stopped halfway in. The rest disappeared into nothing. They never found him. For a week, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside my window, every passing car made my stomach twist. The police came back twice to take follow-up statements. They were kind, but I could tell they didn't expect to find him. They said he was likely a drifter, maybe someone looking for trouble who got scared off when I ran. But something about it stuck in my head. The way he'd said, "I got a shop nearby." The way he'd looked past me, not at me, like he was scanning for something else. My mom wanted me to stay with her for a while. I did. Her house was small, warm, filled with the smell of cinnamon candles and safety. But even there, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had seen me, picked me out of the dark like I was meant to be on that road that night. At work, people tried to act normal. Carol hugged me when I came back and said, "You're lucky, Sophia. Most people don't get a warning like that." Lucky. I heard that word a lot. Still, the nightmares came. The sound of gravel under boots. The sight of those headlights burning holes in the dark. A detective called me 2 weeks later. They'd found tire marks near an abandoned property off Ridge Road, but nothing else. No license plate, no trace. "Sometimes they just move on," he said gently. "It's not personal." But it had felt personal. It still did. A month later, I moved. New place, new route to work. I told myself it was time to stop living scared. It was late September when I first heard the knock. Soft, rhythmic, I was home alone. My roommate had gone to her boyfriend's place. The clock read 11:47. I froze, every muscle locking in place. The knock came again, 3 times. I tiptoed to the peephole. No one. Just darkness and the faint glimmer of porch light catching on wet pavement. I waited. Nothing. Maybe kids, I thought. Maybe nothing at all. But when I opened the door the next morning, there were footprints, large, mud-caked, leading from the driveway to my door and back again. I called the police. They checked the area, said the prints had been washed out by rain before they could cast them. Could be anyone, one of them said. But I knew the truth. The shape of the boot tread looked the same as the prints by my car that night. After that, I stopped walking alone. I parked closer to the diner. I carried pepper spray everywhere. But more than anything, I started watching people. Their tone, their eyes, their patterns. Years have passed since that night, and I still think about it every time I drive home after dark. They never found the man or the truck. Maybe he's out there somewhere, maybe not. But sometimes I catch my reflection in the rearview mirror and realize something changed in me that night. I don't scare easy anymore, but I don't trust easy either. I learned to listen to that quiet voice inside, the one that tells you, this isn't right. You don't argue with it. You don't explain it away. You just go. Because I'm alive, because I ran. Every so often I'll drive past that same stretch of ridge road. The grass is taller now. The mailbox is rusted. My old car is long gone, replaced by something newer, steadier. But when the wind picks up through those trees, it sounds like footsteps. And I can still see those headlights in my mind, staring, waiting. I don't hate that memory anymore. It reminds me that fear sometimes is just instinct trying to save your life. No matter how polite the danger looks, no matter how normal the moment feels, when something deep inside you whispers, run, listen. Safety isn't about being fearless. It's about respecting the fear that's trying to keep you alive. It was nearly 2 a.m. when I left Rick's place, the air outside colder than I expected. We'd spent the evening fixing the old fence behind his barn, then fell into the couch for a late-night football game and a couple of beers. My hands still smelled like cedar and engine oil, a reminder that I'd promised myself this would be an early night and, as usual, broke that promise. Rick lived out past the county line, and my route home took me through a stretch of rural Kentucky road that cut through miles of farmland, black fields on either side, endless barbed wire fences, no streetlights for 10 miles at a time. The only sound was the hum of my old Ford's engine and the rhythmic slap of gravel against the undercarriage. I remember thinking how peaceful it felt, the kind of quiet you don't get in the city, just me, the road, and a sky full of stars so clear you could almost reach out and grab them. My headlights swept over a possum crossing, a mailbox leaning sideways, a sign half rusted that read, Barton Hollow, 7 miles. That was when I saw the lights. 2 dim, pulsing red dots ahead, like the hazard blinkers of a stranded car. They looked small at first, distant, harmless. But as I drew closer, they painted the road in flashes of red and shadow, breaking the stillness that had settled over me. At first, my brain ran on autopilot. Someone might be stuck, maybe hit a deer. You stop to help, that's what decent people do out here. So I slowed down, rolled my window down halfway and leaned toward the glass. A silver sedan sat half in a ditch, its nose buried in mud, steam curling from the hood. A woman stepped into my headlights, waving frantically. She wore a heavy coat, hair tangled, face pale and desperate. "Hey, please, can you stop?" she shouted. "My husband's hurt." "I don't have a phone." I put the truck in park and leaned out. "You okay, ma'am? What happened?" She came closer, her breath clouding in the cold. "We swerved to miss a deer. He's still inside. Please, I can't move him." Something in her voice made me hesitate. Not fear exactly, more like strain. Like she was saying what she thought she should say. I glanced toward the ditch but couldn't see anyone in the driver's seat. Just an empty shape behind the fogged windshield. That was when I heard it, a crunch of gravel behind me. I looked into the rearview mirror. A shape was crouched low near my tailgate, a man's face half covered in dirt, eyes locked on mine through the reflection. My stomach dropped. The woman saw me look. Her expression changed instantly, panic not at me but for me. "Don't get out," she said sharply, her tone snapping like a whip. It wasn't a plea. It was a warning. Every instinct screamed at me. I slammed the gear into drive and floored it. My tires spun, throwing mud before catching traction. I shot forward, swerving around her as the man lunged toward the door handle. His hand smacked the glass, leaving a print in the dew. The truck fishtailed hard before straightening out. In my mirror, I saw the woman sprint into the dark field, her voice cutting through the night, but I couldn't make out the words. Then they were gone. The ditch, the car, the blinking lights swallowed by distance. I didn't slow down until I hit the county highway 10 miles later. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. I told myself I'd go straight to the police station in Lexington, that I wouldn't even go home first. But when I pulled into the lot, hands trembling, the story sounded insane even in my head. Still, I reported it. They took notes, promised to check it out. I drove home watching my mirrors the whole way. That night I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that woman's face, how quickly fear had turned into warning. The next morning, my phone rang at 8:17. It was Deputy Collins from the sheriff's office. "Mr. Mason, we went out there first thing. You weren't imagining things." My heart thudded. "What did you find?" He sighed. "Tire tracks, footprints, broken taillight. Couple of spots in the field we're having forensics dig up. Looks like graves, shallow ones. Graves." The word hit like a hammer. "Any sign of the car?" "None. No debris, no plates, nothing. But the soil's fresh. You did good calling it in." I spent the rest of that day trying to shake it off, but it clung to me. Every errand felt hollow. At the grocery store, the hum of the freezer aisle made me flinch. At the gas station, the sight of a silver sedan made my stomach twist. That evening, Rick stopped by after hearing about it from his brother, who worked in dispatch. "Hell, Dan, you could have been another name on the news," he said, setting a six-pack on my counter. "They're saying it's the same stretch where folks have gone missing before." "Before?" He nodded grimly. 3 last year. Travelers, mostly. Cops figured accidents or people just taking off. Guess not. We sat in silence for a long minute. The beer tasted like metal. "I keep thinking about her," I said finally. "The woman. She told me not to get out. She saved me." Rick leaned back, eyes narrowed. "You sure she wasn't part of it?" I wanted to say yes. But the truth was, I didn't know. That night, sleep came in fits. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Around 3 a.m., I woke to a car slowing outside. Headlights crawled across my wall and stopped. I held my breath. After a long moment, the engine revved and faded into the distance. When morning came, I found fresh tire marks at the edge of my driveway. 2 days later, I drove back to Barton Hollow. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe guilt. I needed to see the place in daylight. The police tape fluttered weakly in the wind, marking a patch of churned dirt near the field. I stood there for a while, the silence thick. Birds had returned to the fence posts, oblivious to what the ground hid beneath them. That's when I noticed the woman. She was standing by the tree line about 50 yards away, wearing the same heavy coat. My chest seized. "Hey!" I called, stepping toward her. She didn't move. The wind stirred her hair across her face. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" Still nothing. Then she turned. Not fast, not slow, just deliberate. And she smiled. It wasn't the look of someone relieved to be found. It was knowing. I blinked and she was gone. I ran to where she'd been standing. Only footprints faint leading into the trees, then gone. Driving home, my mind spiraled between logic and dread. Maybe trauma had my imagination running wild. Maybe she'd been real. Maybe she wanted to warn me again. That night, someone knocked on my door. It was Deputy Collins. "Evening, Mr. Mason. Mind if I come in?" He held a manila folder. Inside were photos, crime scene shots, evidence bags. We dug up 3 sites. 2 sets of remains so far. One's recent, female mid-30s. The other's older, still running IDs. I swallowed hard. "The woman I saw," he nodded. "We think she might have been one of them." Weeks passed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something from that road had followed me home. My dreams were filled with headlights, flashing red lights, the crunch of gravel. I stopped driving at night altogether. One afternoon, I came home from work and found my front door ajar. My first thought was burglary, but nothing was taken. Instead, there was a folded note on the kitchen counter. It read, "Thank you for not stopping. No signature. No explanation." I called Collins immediately. He brought a team to dust for prints, none found. "You sure you locked up?" he asked. "I always lock up." Then whoever left this knew how to get in without breaking in. Maybe someone you know. The thought made me sick. For days, I carried the note in my wallet, like proof that the nightmare was still real. Rick told me to get cameras installed, but even that didn't help. The cameras caught nothing. Just the wind, stray dogs, and my own reflection coming home late. Then one night I saw her again. This time in my backyard by the edge of the woods. Same coat, same pale face. She didn't move, didn't speak. Just raised a hand slowly as if pointing behind me. I spun around. Nothing there. When I turned back, she was gone again. I started sleeping with the lights on. A month later, the sheriff's office called. They'd identified the bodies. One was a woman named Ellen Price, missing 3 months. Married to a man named George Price. He was a suspect in her disappearance, but he'd vanished too. The name hit me like a bullet. I'd seen that name before, on an old mailbox along Route 14, a half-mile from where the wreck had been staged. That night I couldn't stay in the house. I got in my truck and drove. The road stretched ahead, empty as ever, the same darkness pressing in. When I reached the turnoff to Barton Hollow, I slowed. The ditch was overgrown now. No tape, no signs, just quiet. For a moment, I thought I saw movement, a flicker of red in the distance, but it was just my own brake lights reflecting off a road sign. I sat there with the engine idling, gripping the wheel. "Thank you," I whispered, though I wasn't sure to whom. The woman, the ghost, or my own better judgment. Then I turned the truck around and drove home. I haven't taken that road since. Sometimes when the night gets too quiet, I still hear her voice in my head, sharp and urgent. Don't get out. Evil doesn't always look like danger. It often wears the mask of desperation. Trust your instincts even when kindness feels like obligation. In a world where good intentions can be used as traps, survival sometimes depends on knowing when not to stop. People always think long-haul trucking is about freedom. Open skies, good music, and the hum of the engine underneath your boots. Maybe it is for some folks. For me, it's more like living between radio stations. Always halfway to somewhere else. Always missing something you can't name. I've been hauling freight for 20 years. Electronics mostly. TVs, monitors, gaming systems. The kind of stuff that costs a fortune but doesn't weigh much. It was early January, right after a snowstorm swept across the Dakotas. The kind of night where the air feels sharp enough to slice through denim. Dispatch gave me a route from Minneapolis down to Denver, about 1,100 miles, and told me to take my time. The load was insured, but not urgent. I left before sundown, rolling through empty fields buried in snow. The sky turned black quick, swallowing everything except the thin ribbon of highway in front of me. The CB crackled with a few voices, truckers swapping jokes, talking weather, complaining about DOT checkpoints. But by midnight, it was just static. Most folks pull over by then. I don't. I like the night. Fewer cars, fewer distractions, just me and the hum of diesel. Still, there's a loneliness that creeps in after midnight. The road starts to feel endless, like you're driving through space. I turned up the heater and the radio, but it didn't help. My coffee had gone cold. My eyelids were heavy. When I saw the blue rest area sign, next right 1 mile, it felt like an invitation. The place was dead quiet. A single pickup sat far off by the trees, headlights dim, but still burning. I parked my rig under the yellow glow of the lamppost, climbed down and stretched. The cold bit through my gloves instantly. I stamped my boots on the pavement, grabbed $1 from my pocket, and went for the vending machine. The coffee tasted like rust and burnt sugar, but it was hot. I leaned against the machine, listening to the wind whistle through the trees. No sound of cars, no engines, just that eerie stillness you get in the middle of nowhere. When I came back out, someone was standing behind my trailer. At first, I figured he was another driver checking his tires or hitch, but he didn't move. Just stood there, half in the shadows, coat collar turned up, face hidden. "Hey!" I called out. No answer. Something inside me, that old animal sense, told me to get back in the cab. I did. Locked both doors. Sat there watching through the mirror. He stayed still for a minute, then started walking, went slow, and went toward the passenger side. My pulse spiked. I laid on the horn, long and loud. The guy froze, then sprinted off into the trees, disappearing into the dark. I sat there shaking, heart pounding like an engine misfire. After a minute, I grabbed the mic. "Breaker 19, I said. "Anybody got ears near I-29 southbound? Got a suspicious guy at the Mile 84 rest stop." A few truckers answered, nobody nearby. I waited a while, engine idling, then decided to roll out. I figured maybe he was some drifter, maybe high, maybe just lost. But my gut said otherwise. My gut said, get moving. The highway looked the same as before, empty and endless. Snow kicked up behind my trailer like smoke. The clock on the dash said 2:17 a.m. I tried to focus on the road, but my eyes kept drifting to the mirrors. Every time the wind caught a reflection, I thought I saw movement. Paranoia, I told myself. Just road fatigue. Still, I couldn't shake it. My headlights carved 2 narrow tunnels into the dark, and beyond that, nothing. Every shadow looked like a man standing on the shoulder. Every flicker looked like a signal. After about an hour, I decided to pull into the next rest area. I figured I'd grab another coffee, check the load, maybe catch some air. The place was brighter than the last one. Newer building, more lights, but just as empty. I climbed down and walked around the trailer. My breath hung in the air, thick and white. That's when I saw it. Muddy handprints, smeared across the back doors. High up, too high for someone standing on the ground. I froze. My flashlight beam trembled as I moved it closer. The prints were long, streaked downward, like someone had been hanging on and lost their grip. The mud was fresh, still wet despite the cold. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the temperature. I backed away, scanning the tree line. Nothing moved. No sounds except the wind. My mind started spinning. Had that guy from the last stop been on my trailer the whole time? Riding along in the freezing dark, I didn't even want to think about it. I got back in the cab, locked up again, and hit the road faster than before. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my coffee. On the radio, I caught some chatter about a state trooper who'd found a body near an old rest stop 2 days earlier. They didn't have details, but I turned the volume down anyway. The road stretched ahead, black and endless. Every time my trailer rattled, I imagined something banging from inside. Every mile felt heavier. By sunrise, I was somewhere in Nebraska. I hadn't stopped once. My eyes were bloodshot, and the heater was barely keeping up with the cold. I pulled into a truck stop for fuel, parked by the pump, and just sat there staring at the steering wheel. A young attendant came out, wrapped in a hoodie. "Morning," he said, stamping his feet. "Rough night?" "You could say that." He started filling the tank, glancing at the back of the trailer. "What's all that mud from?" "Wish I knew," I said. He didn't push it, just nodded slowly like he'd heard stranger things. I grabbed breakfast inside and stale pancakes, watery coffee, and tried to convince myself it was over. Probably just some vagrant who climbed up looking for a ride, fell off after a few miles. That's what I told myself. But the image of those handprints wouldn't leave me. Later that afternoon, a state patrol cruiser pulled into the lot. The trooper came inside, tall guy with mirrored sunglasses despite the clouds. He walked straight to my booth. "You the driver of that white Kenworth outside?" "Yeah," I said. "Something wrong?" He held up his badge. "You passed through the I-29 rest area around 2 this morning?" I nodded, heart thudding. "We had a call about a suspicious person out there," he said. "Fits the description of a man we've been looking for. Escaped mental patient from Sioux Falls. Dangerous. May have tried to hitch a ride." My stomach dropped. "You saying he could have been on my truck?" "Hard to say," the officer replied. "But if you see or hear anything unusual, call it in." He left after that, but his words sat heavy. Escaped mental patient. Dangerous. The idea that he might have been inches from me for miles made my skin crawl. I checked my trailer again before leaving. The handprints had frozen solid now, crusted in gray ice. I stared at them a long time before climbing back into the cab. Then I locked the doors, again, and rolled south. Night fell early that day, and with it came the fog. The snow had stopped, but the world looked washed out, just gray sky and darker ground. My headlights barely cut through. The road curved endlessly, a black ribbon leading nowhere. I kept the CB off. Didn't want to hear anyone, didn't want to talk, just wanted the miles behind me. But sometime after 9, I started feeling that same pressure in my chest, like eyes on me. The mirrors showed nothing, but I couldn't shake it. At a way station outside North Platte, I pulled over to check again. I opened the back doors this time, half expecting to see something or someone inside. But it was empty. Boxes strapped tight, everything in order. Still, I caught myself whispering, "You're not back there, are you?" When I shut the doors, I noticed new marks in the grime, faint streaks like fingerprints along the latch. I didn't even check the ground. I just got back in the truck and kept driving. By midnight, exhaustion hit hard. I started seeing things in the snowbanks, shapes, movement, faces maybe. I slapped myself to stay awake. The road felt alive, breathing under the tires. I pulled into a small diner off Highway 83 just to get out. Inside, the waitress looked half asleep. "Coffee?" she asked. "Please," I said, sitting at the counter. She poured me a cup and nodded toward the window. "That your rig out there?" "Yeah." "Why?" "Saw someone walk behind it when you pulled in," she said casually. "Thought it was you?" I felt every hair on my neck rise. "You sure?" "Pretty sure," she said, frowning. Didn't look like a trucker, though. No coat. I ran outside, scanning the lot. Empty, just wine-swirling snow across the pavement. I circled the trailer. Nothing. No footprints even, like the snow had swallowed them. I didn't sleep that night. I just drove. The road and I were one long stretch of fear. I made Denver just after dawn, dropped the trailer at the yard, signed the papers, and tried not to think about anything. The dispatcher handed me a new manifest, but I told him I needed rest. He nodded, said I looked like hell. He wasn't wrong. That night I checked into a cheap motel off I-70. Peeling wallpaper, humming radiator, smells like cigarettes. I took the longest shower of my life, crawled into bed, and told myself it was over. Around 3 in the morning, I woke to a noise. A faint thump from outside. Then another. I went to the window and pulled the curtain. My truck sat under the streetlight, quiet. But the back door, the same trailer I'd dropped earlier, was slightly open. I threw on my boots, grabbed the tire iron from under the seat, and stepped into the cold. My breath fogged the air. The lot was empty except for my rig and 2 other semis. The door creaked as I pulled it shut. Then I saw them, more prints, fresh this time, in the dust along the handle. Same shape, same size. I reported it to the yard the next morning. They ran cameras, checked the area. Nothing. No sign of anyone, no footprints in the snow. The cops said maybe kids messing around, maybe. But I knew better. I knew someone had been there, watching, following, waiting. I quit long-haul trucking a few months later, took local routes instead. I tell myself it's for family, for health, for shorter hours. But the truth is, I still see those handprints in my dreams. Every time I pull into a dark rest stop, I look twice. Every time I hear a thump behind me, my heart races. The road still calls to me sometimes, but I've learned something out there in the cold. The highway's not empty. It never is. No matter how experienced or prepared you think you are, always trust your instincts. Sometimes the danger isn't the road, the weather, or the load you carry. It's the silence, the stillness, the sense that something just isn't right. Those feelings exist to protect you. In life, as on the highway, ignoring them might cost you more than a night's sleep. It might cost you everything. I've never liked long country drives at night, but sometimes you don't have a choice. That Friday, my coworker Ben had invited a few of us to his cabin to celebrate finishing a big project. His place sat miles off the main road. No cell service, no neighbors, just pine trees and stars. We grilled, drank a few beers, and told old work stories around the fire. By midnight, the laughter had faded into yawns, and everyone was either asleep or staying over. I decided to head home. I told myself I'd be fine. The air was cool, the sky clear, and I wanted my own bed. Ben warned me. Watch the deer on Route 12, they love jumping out of nowhere. I promised I'd drive slow. The first few miles were peaceful. Just the hum of tires and the rhythmic flash of white road lines. My gas gauge hovered near empty, but I figured I could make it to the next town. Then the road narrowed, the trees thickened, and the night pressed in. No streetlights, no houses, just black forest swallowing both sides of the car. That's when I saw her. At first she was just a blur caught in my headlights, arms flailing, coat soaked, hair plastered to her face. I eased off the gas and rolled my window down a crack. "You okay, ma'am?" I called. She stumbled toward me, breathless. "Please," she said, voice trembling. "My car broke down. I've been walking for hours. I just need to get to town." Something about her eyes unsettled me. They kept darting over my shoulder, toward the dark woods behind her. "Where's your car?" I asked. She pointed vaguely down the road, a few miles back. I didn't want to stay there. "Please, can you drive me? Just to the gas station." I hesitated. She looked genuinely terrified, but not the kind of scared that comes from being stranded. It was deeper, like she'd seen something. I said, "I can call for help when I get signal." Her face changed instantly. "No, don't call anyone. Please just drive." That's when I saw the footprints. 2 sets of them, muddy and fresh, one leading from the woods to where she stood, another heading back. My stomach tightened. Before I could react, she screamed, "He's still here!" and ran into the open field beside the road. Then something moved in the trees. A tall shadow, fast and deliberate, stepping into the edge of my headlights. Instinct took over. I slammed the gas and tore down the road, my heart hammering so hard I could barely breathe. I didn't stop until I reached the main highway. I barely slept. My mind replayed every second, the woman's face, her voice, the shadow. By dawn, I convinced myself it must have been something explainable. Maybe she was running from someone, maybe I'd overreacted. Still, I couldn't shake the thought that she needed help. So around 10 a.m., I called the county sheriff. The dispatcher sounded skeptical but sent a patrol to check. 2 hours later, an officer called back. "Sir, we found a car matching what you described. Silver sedan, nose down in a ditch off Route 12. Was she there?" I asked. No sign of anyone. Car was empty. Doors unlocked, keys still inside. "We'll keep looking." The officer paused. "You did the right thing leaving when you felt unsafe." I wanted to believe him, but something about his tone said he didn't buy my story completely. That night, I sat on my porch staring into the dark fields. Every rustle of wind made me flinch. At one point, I thought I heard crying somewhere far off, but when I stepped into the yard, it was silent again. 2 days later, I stopped at a diner near the highway for breakfast. The waitress, an older woman with silver hair, noticed me staring at the TV above the counter. A news segment was playing. Authorities continue searching for a missing woman whose car was found abandoned on Route 12. I froze. It was her. The same face, same coat. The reporter said her name was Rachel Cooper, 32, missing since Friday night. The waitress caught my expression. "You know her?" I hesitated. "I saw her that night." Her eyebrows lifted. "Then you better tell somebody." That afternoon, I met with the sheriff in person. He took my statement again, slower this time. "So she told you not to call for help?" he asked. "Yeah, she seemed scared, like she was hiding from someone." He leaned back in his chair. "We found more footprints near the car. 2 sets, like you said. But the second pair, smaller, barefoot, in that freezing rain." The sheriff said they'd search the woods again. I left his office shaken, wondering if I'd escaped something worse than I realized. A week passed. I tried moving on, but every night the same dream returned. The woman's scream, the shadow stepping from the trees. Then one evening, Ben called. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "Cops were by my place this morning. They found something near the creek." "What was it?" "Just an old campsite. But get this, there was a phone charger and a woman's shoe." I felt the room tilt. "Rachel?" "Maybe. They didn't say." That night, I drove back toward the area. I don't know why. Maybe guilt, maybe curiosity. The forest road was muddy, the same one I'd flown down that night. When I reached the spot where I'd seen her, I pulled over. The rain had started again, soft and cold. I stepped out with a flashlight. The field was quiet except for the hiss of drizzle on grass. I almost convinced myself it was over, until I saw fresh footprints again. Bare ones. They led from the ditch straight to where I stood, then vanished. A whisper drifted through the trees, faint but unmistakable. "Don't call for help." The investigation fizzled after 2 weeks. No body, no suspect, no answers. The sheriff figured Rachel ran off or met someone out there. But I couldn't let it go. One night I got an envelope in my mailbox, no return address. Inside was a photo taken from behind me, showing my truck parked on Route 12. Scrawled on the back, "You should have listened." I moved to the city soon after, traded country roads for noise and streetlights. Still, sometimes when I'm driving late and the gas gauge dips low, I catch myself glancing at the shoulder, half expecting to see her standing there again, arms waving, eyes wide with fear. And every time I do, I keep driving. Instinct is a voice older than reason. When it whispers, "Listen." Compassion is noble, but blind trust in the dark can cost more than courage. It can cost survival. Some cries for help are warnings meant to save you. I've worked night deliveries for almost 6 years. It's quiet work, pays the bills, and gives me time to think. The roads at night are usually my kind of peace. No traffic, no calls from the boss, just me, the hum of the van, and the glow of the dashboard. But that peace turns fragile when you spend too many nights alone on the road. Sometimes it feels like the dark is listening. That Friday started like any other. I'd clocked in around 5 at Toning, Pine Bite Eats, a small delivery hub tucked behind a gas station at the edge of town. We serviced all the mountain cabins scattered through the valley. Around 11:30 p.m., I got a late-night order, chili and cornbread from a Marty's Diner, one of our regulars. The address looked new, 72 Hollow Creek Road. "Never heard of that one," I muttered. Tina, our dispatcher, glanced at her screen. "Customer must be way out. Says leave on porch. You okay taking it?" "Yeah," I said. "Last run anyway." The bag smelled good, still warm. I loaded it up, grabbed a thermos of coffee, and set off. The GPS showed a 40-minute drive into the backcountry. The road twisted past pine forests and creeks that glittered faintly in the moonlight. The air grew colder, the fog thicker. My cell signal dropped to a single bar, then nothing. I kept driving. That's when I saw it, a tall figure standing dead center in the road ahead, half hidden by fog. I slowed down, rolled the window an inch. "Hey, you waiting for food?" No answer. I blinked, and the figure was gone. Just fog swirling in my headlights. My pulse kicked up. Probably just the mist, I told myself. But my gut said otherwise. A mile later, the GPS announced I'd reached the address. A dark cabin sat off to the right. No lights, no cars, nothing. The porch sagged under years of rain. I grabbed the bag, walked up the steps, and froze. Carved into the door was something sharp were the words, "Leave it where you found me." A chill ran through me so deep it hurt. I dropped the food, stumbled back to the van, and floored it all the way down the mountain. When I finally reached the main highway, my hands were still shaking. I pulled into the Sunoco 24-hour to breathe. The clerk, an older guy named Jim, eyed me. "You look like you saw a ghost," he said. "Maybe I did," I muttered, trying to laugh it off. Back at the depot, the clock read 1:12 a.m. Tina was logging orders. I handed her my keys. "I'm done." She frowned. "You didn't mark the delivery complete." Yeah, the GPS froze. She turned her monitor toward me. "That address you went to, Hollow Creek, it's not in the system anymore." "What do you mean?" "It vanished after you left. There's no order under your route number." I pulled up my phone. The delivery receipt was gone too, replaced by an old archived ticket dated 2014. Under delivery address, it read, "Hollow Creek Cabin, abandoned after fatal accident." Tina gave a low whistle. "Weird glitch, huh?" I didn't answer. That night I dreamed of the figure again, standing in the middle of the road, whispering in a voice I couldn't quite hear. The next day, curiosity got the better of me. I stopped by the library, figuring maybe there'd be something about Hollow Creek in old newspapers. The local history clerk, Mrs. Lanning, found it within minutes. She slid a microfilm printout toward me. Headline: "Local family killed in delivery crash. Driver never found." The article dated back 10 years. It said a food delivery van lost control during a storm, crashed into a cabin off Hollow Creek Road, killing the homeowner and his daughter instantly. The driver's body was never recovered. I swallowed hard. Was his name Carlos? Mrs. Lanning shook her head. No, it says David Martinez. Close. Too close. That night I sat in my van outside my apartment, staring at the fog rolling down from the hills. My phone pinged. No caller ID, just a notification from the delivery app. Hollow Creek Cabin, delivery incomplete. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat. My headlights flickered twice, then steadied. For a moment in the rearview mirror, I swore I saw someone sitting in the back seat. When I turned around, it was empty. By Sunday, I'd decided I couldn't ignore it. Whether it was a glitch, a prank, or something worse, I had to see that place in daylight. I left early morning, fog still heavy in the hollows. The road twisted the same way as before, though this time the GPS wouldn't even load. The trees seemed closer, like the forest was leaning in. When I reached the spot, there was no cabin, only a burned-out foundation swallowed by weeds. But something glinted near the ashes, a melted food bag. I picked it up, still half intact, and nearly dropped it when I saw my own handwriting on the sticker. Order 6427, Carlos R. I hadn't written that. I'd never used that number. A whisper brushed my ear. Leave it where you found me. I bolted back to the van, but the engine refused to start. The radio crackled alive with static. Through the static came a voice, low and broken. Delivery complete, finally. Then silence. The van roared to life, headlights blinding for a second before cutting off on their own. The next evening, Tina called. Hey, weird thing. The system marked your Hollow Creek delivery as completed. Time stamped 12:17 a.m. last night. I wasn't even out, I said. Well, it logged your vehicle ID. She paused. And the tip cleared. I quit that night. I couldn't keep driving those roads, not knowing what was out there or who might still be waiting. Sometimes when the fog rolls into town, I hear the faint chime of my old delivery app notification. New order available, Hollow Creek Cabin. I never accept it. But part of me wonders if someone else will. Not every unfinished task is yours to complete. Some places and some people belong to the past, and trying to deliver what was lost can trap you there too. Curiosity may push you down dark roads, but wisdom is knowing when to turn around. It's strange how quiet a city can feel when the night finally gives up trying to pretend it's alive. I'd always liked walking home after late nights. The hum of distant traffic, the smell of rain on pavement, the way every sound feels sharper when the streets are empty. That night, though, something felt off. I was leaving my friend Caleb's apartment after helping him move furniture and splitting a six-pack. Nothing unusual. I wasn't drunk, just tired. The streets around downtown were empty except for the occasional passing bus, its windows reflecting slices of orange light. It was close to midnight when I turned down Maple Avenue, a long stretch that cut straight to my apartment building. The air was cool, my breath forming pale clouds in front of me. My footsteps echoed off the buildings, bouncing back like I wasn't alone. Every streetlight I passed hummed softly, a low electric buzz, but halfway down the block one started to flicker. Underneath that flickering light stood a man. He was facing away from me, head slightly tilted like he was looking at something across the street. I slowed my pace, pretending to check my phone. His clothes were dark and a long coat, maybe a hood. I couldn't tell from that distance. For some reason, I felt like I shouldn't get closer. My brain whispered the kind of warning you don't ignore, so I crossed to the opposite sidewalk and kept walking. That's when the light stopped flickering. It went steady, humming louder. I glanced back once and then he was gone, just gone. I told myself he probably walked off when I wasn't looking. People disappear into alleyways all the time. Still, I sped up, trying to shake the unease crawling up my spine. But a few blocks later, I heard it, footsteps behind me. Soft, dragging steps perfectly matching mine. When I slowed, they slowed. When I sped up, they did too. I turned a corner sharply, half expecting to catch whoever it was, but the street was empty. My reflection in a darkened shop window stared back at me. Tired eyes, messy hair, nervous smile. "You're fine," I muttered. "Just tired." By the time I reached my apartment building, I had almost convinced myself nothing was wrong. I fumbled for my keys, hand shaking slightly. That's when a voice whispered right beside my ear, close enough that I felt the breath. "You dropped something." I froze. My house keys were already in my hand. I turned around, no one. The street light above my door flickered twice, then went completely dark. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the windows made my heart jump. When dawn finally came, I laughed at myself for being paranoid. Morning light has a way of erasing fear, at least until the next sunset. Work that day dragged. I work at a repair shop just outside the city, fixing phones, laptops, the kind of job that's quiet enough to make you think too much. Around noon, Caleb texted, "Caleb, you get home all right last night?" Me, "Yeah, why?" Caleb, "Thought I saw you talking to someone outside." That froze me. I didn't reply. I hadn't spoken to anyone. When I left work that evening, it was already dark. I told myself to take the bus this time. No more late-night walks. But somehow I ended up on the same street again. Maple Avenue, my mind rationalizing it as facing the fear. Halfway down the block, under that same streetlight, there was something small on the ground. My curiosity got the better of me. I crouched down and saw it was a Harry keychain, a cheap metal tag with the number 208 engraved on it. My apartment number. I stood there for a moment, cold spreading through my chest. I didn't drop it. I'd never owned anything like that. I pocketed it, walked home fast, and locked every bolt behind me. That night I heard faint tapping sounds, not from outside, but from inside the walls. Like someone dragging a nail slowly down the drywall. I tried to find the source, but couldn't. Around 3 a.m., the sound stopped. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Unknown. "You shouldn't have taken what's not yours." I showed Caleb the text the next day. He laughed it off. "Man, it's probably some scammer or prank. Just block the number." I wanted to believe him. I deleted the message, but unease stuck with me like static. That evening, when I got home, I noticed something wrong. My front door was unlocked. I was sure I'd locked it that morning. Nothing seemed stolen, but the air felt disturbed, like someone had stood in the middle of my living room for hours breathing. Later, I decided to take a shower, trying to wash away the tension. The steam fogged up the mirror, and as I wiped it with my hand, I froze. On the mirror, faint but visible, were finger streaks. 2 words written in the condensation, "Drop it." I stepped back, heart racing. My apartment door was locked now, the deadbolt secure. How the hell could anyone have been inside? I grabbed the keychain from my pocket and threw it in the trash. That night, I barely blinked, sitting on the couch with the TV volume low. Around 1 a.m., my bathroom light turned on by itself. Then, that voice again, low and steady, like it was coming from just behind my ear. "You dropped something." The next day, I took a different route to work, avoiding Maple Avenue entirely. But fear doesn't care about directions, and it follows. At the shop, my boss asked if I was okay. "You look like hell, Daniel." "Didn't sleep," I said. "Somebody's been screwing with me." He chuckled. "City life will do that." When I got home, I found an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a photo of me, walking home last night, my face half lit by headlights. On the back, "Still got your keys?" That night, I couldn't stay in the apartment. I packed a bag and drove to Caleb's. He laughed at my panic but let me crash on his couch. Around 2 a.m., while I was half asleep, I heard footsteps in the hallway outside his apartment. Slow. Heavy. Then, the sound of something metal scraping across the floor. Caleb's dog started whining. The next morning, Caleb's front doorknob had a fresh scratch mark on it, like a key had been dragged across the metal. A week later, I finally decided to report everything to the police. The officer at the desk listened politely but didn't write much. "Sounds like a prank," he said. "You sure you're not imagining things?" But that night proved I wasn't. When I got home, my apartment door was wide open. Inside, every light was off, except the one under the flickering streetlight outside my window. It was strobing in that same uneven rhythm I remembered, and beneath it, through the glass, I saw him. The man, standing perfectly still, face hidden by his hood. In his hand, he held the Kelmy keychain wound, the one I'd thrown away. I called 911, but before they could answer, the light went out. Total darkness. Then, whisper, inches from my ear. "You dropped something." When the cops arrived, they found my apartment empty. The window was open, curtains swaying. No footprints, no sign of forced entry. Just a single keychain lying in the middle of the floor. I moved out the next morning. To this day, whenever I pass an empty street under a flickering light, I still hear that voice. Not every shadow hides evil, but not every act of reason keeps you safe. Fear is often your body's way of telling you what logic refuses to accept. Always trust your instincts, especially when everything looks normal. The danger you ignore once might be the one that never lets you go. I've been driving long haul for close to 20 years, and the road still feels like home to me. I'm used to the hum of tires on asphalt, the steady drone of diesel, the way the sky stretches forever across the plains. When you spend enough time behind the wheel, the highway stops being a place you travel through and starts being a place you live in. That was the life I chose. My name's Der Logan, and this story happened on a bitter January night somewhere in the middle of Kansas. I'd left Kansas City just after sunset with a trailer full of auto parts bound for Denver. Dispatch wanted me there by noon the next day. The forecast called for snow out west, but for now the night was clear. Cold enough that the air stabbed at your lungs if you stepped outside, but the kind of cold that made the stars look like diamonds. I hadn't seen another vehicle for an hour. Out there, the plains stretch so far you feel like you're driving across an ocean made of grass. The only light came from my headlights in the faint red glow of my dashboard. The CB radio had been silent most of the night. I kept it on channel 19 out of habit. But after midnight, truckers are usually either asleep or too tired to talk. Then the static popped. A low hiss came through, followed by a faint voice. "Do you see me?" I frowned. "Say again, Breaker 19? Nothing but static. Probably some kid with a handheld messing around. It happens." I turned the squelch down and kept rolling. The road went on forever. Black asphalt framed by snow-covered fields, telephone poles flicking past like metronome ticks. Still, the voice stuck in my head. "Do you see me?" I didn't know why it bothered me, but it did. About 20 minutes later, a glimmer of light appeared ahead on the shoulder. As I got closer, I realized it was another truck. An older Peterbilt, maybe late 70s, parked with its hazards weakly flashing. The lights flickered like they were dying. I slowed down, instinctively reaching for the mic. "Breaker 19, you all right up there, driver?" I called. No answer. I tried again. Still silence. When you've been in this line of work as long as I have, you look out for your own. A breakdown in the middle of nowhere in that kind of cold can kill a man. I pulled onto the shoulder behind him and grabbed my flashlight. The air hit me like a hammer the moment I stepped out. The Peterbilt looked rough. Old paint, cracked mirrors, snow crusted on the steps. The driver's door was closed, but the engine was still running, coughing low like it hadn't been tuned in years. I climbed up the step and knocked on the door. No response. I pulled the handle. The door wasn't locked. Inside, the cab light was on. The driver's seat was empty. A thermos sat in the cup holder with steam still rising from it. On the dash lay a worn leather wallet and an open logbook. The seatbelt was unbuckled, hanging loose. "Hello?" I called, shining my light around. The sleeper berth was empty. No sign of struggle. No footprints leading away either. Just tire tracks and untouched snow. I felt a chill crawl up my neck that had nothing to do with the wind. Something about that still warm coffee hit me wrong. Whoever had been here couldn't have gone far. Maybe he'd stepped out to take a leak. Maybe he'd gone for help. But there were no buildings for miles. Just dark fields and fences buried in snow. I backed down the step, keeping my light on the tree line. The shadows looked deeper than they should have. For a moment I thought I saw movement, something pale shifting between the trees, but then it was gone. I told myself it was just the beam catching on the snow. I climbed into my own truck, locked both doors, and sat there with the engine idling. My hands were trembling slightly as I picked up the mic. "Breaker 19, I said, voice tight. "Anybody hear me out here near mile marker 212 on I-70 westbound? Got an abandoned rig, engine running, no driver." Static. Then faintly, "You shouldn't have stopped." My stomach dropped. I froze with the mic in my hand. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice shaking. Only the hiss of static answered. I dropped the mic, threw the rig into gear, and pulled back onto the highway. The road ahead was a long, dark ribbon cutting through white fields. I pushed the pedal harder than I should have, just wanting distance between me and that truck. My pulse thudded in my ears louder than the engine. I told myself it had to be some sick prank. Maybe another driver on a nearby channel messing with me. Maybe the guy from that truck had a second CB in the woods and thought it'd be funny. Still, my gut didn't buy it. I'd gone about 5 miles when the CB hissed again. "You shouldn't have stopped," the same voice whispered. Softer this time. Closer. Like it was coming from inside the cab. "Cut the crap," I barked, slamming the volume knob off. My palms were slick on the steering wheel. The road dipped slightly and my headlights caught a shape ahead. At first it looked like a deer. Then it moved, 2 legs, not 4. I hit the brakes. The tires screamed against the ice. Standing in the beam was a man. He was drenched from head to toe, water dripping off him, clothes clinging to his body. His skin looked gray in the light. And the jacket he wore, brown canvas with a torn sleeve, I'd seen it hanging on the seat in that abandoned truck. My heart nearly stopped. I slammed the horn and the sound tore through the night. The man didn't move, just stared at me. Head tilted slightly like he was trying to recognize me. Then slowly he raised his arm and pointed down the road. That was enough. I threw the truck into reverse, backed up until my trailer straightened, then shifted to drive and swerved around him. My mirrors showed only empty highway after that. No man, no footprints, nothing. By the time I hit the next rest stop, my nerves were shot. I parked under the brightest light I could find, engine still running. I got out to breathe, my boots crunching on the snow. The world was silent except for the low rumble of idling engines from a couple of other trucks. I wasn't alone here, thank God. Inside the rest area, the fluorescent lights buzzed. A woman behind the counter looked up from her phone. "Rough night?" she asked. "You could say that," I said, grabbing a coffee. "You seen any other trucks stop through lately? Maybe an old Peterbilt, rust-colored?" She frowned, thinking. "There was one towed in last week after a wreck east of here." "Why?" I felt my chest tighten. "A wreck?" "Yeah, driver didn't make it," she said softly. "They say he lost control on the ice and flipped the cab into a ditch. Poor guy. Happened right near mile marker 212. The number hit me like a punch. I didn't say anything else. Just paid for my coffee and stepped outside. Snow was starting to fall again, light but steady. My headlights cast long spears of white through the flakes. I climbed into the cab and sat there staring at the CB mic. I didn't want to touch it, but I had to know. I turned the radio back on. Static filled the cab, soft and constant. For a long time, nothing happened, then, "You see me now?" I dropped the mic. My coffee spilled across the floor. Outside, through the blur of falling snow, I swore I saw someone standing by the tail of my trailer. The outline of a man, shoulders hunched, head bowed. I blinked and he was gone. I left the rest area before dawn. The snow had stopped, leaving a pale mist that hugged the ground. I drove without the radio on, without music, without anything but the sound of the engine and my own breathing. When I reached Denver, I dropped my load, signed the papers, and parked the rig at the yard. I sat there for a long time before shutting off the key. The silence was deafening. That night in my motel room, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man, dripping, pointing, eyes hollow. I kept replaying it, wondering if I'd imagined it all. Stress, fatigue, the isolation of the road, and they can mess with your head. That's what I told myself. But a week later, I stopped at a diner off I-70 and overheard 2 drivers talking at the counter. "Crazy story," one said. They found a Peterbilt out near 212 again. Empty cab, engine running. Cops say the driver's rig was stolen and found miles away, doors open. No sign of him. I didn't say a word. I just paid my bill, walked out and climbed into my truck. Before I started the engine, I looked at the passenger seat. Lying there was an old wet leather wallet. I hadn't noticed it before. My hand started to shake. The CB crackled. "Do you see me?" That was the last time I ever drove that stretch of highway. Sometimes the road isn't empty, it remembers. Out there in the dark, where silence stretches farther than the horizon, you learn the value of trusting your instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Curiosity may be part of human nature, but some things are better left alone. In life, as on the highway, not every call for help comes from the living, and not every silence means you're alone. It's funny how you can live somewhere for years and still not really see it until you're alone at night. I'd been working at Ruby's Diner since I was 19. Just a small place off Highway 14, famous for our pancakes and bottomless coffee. I was 27 now, still there, still working the late shift that ran until 2 in the morning. Most nights, the world outside felt like an old photograph, quiet, washed out, and slightly crooked around the edges. My walk home usually took about 30 minutes if I stayed on the main road, but that route passed the empty lumberyard and a stretch of half-lit houses that always made me feel watched. The shortcut, a narrow alley between 2 abandoned brick warehouses, shaved in minutes off. It wasn't exactly safe-looking, but I'd walked it so many times I could picture every crack in the pavement. The air always smelled faintly of wet cement and old rain. That night I clocked out at 2:12 a.m. The diner's neon sign flickered as I stepped outside. It was drizzling, just enough to paint the asphalt in streaks of orange from the streetlights. I tugged my jacket tighter and started walking, my sneakers squeaking in the puddles. I thought about how I'd spend my day off tomorrow. Maybe sleep in, maybe finally fix the leaky faucet in the kitchen. The town was quiet except for the hum of a passing truck somewhere far off. I turned onto Cherry Avenue where the alley began. The rain made the world feel smaller, the sound of it bouncing off the brick walls like whispers. I remember glancing up. The clouds hung low, heavy, like they wanted to crush the rooftops. Halfway through I heard it, footsteps light but steady. I stopped. The sound stopped too. I turned around, nobody. Just the slick stretch of wet pavement and the faint orange glow reflecting off the puddles. I let out a shaky breath, told myself it was just my echo or maybe the drip of water from a drain pipe. I'd been up for 12 hours straight. My mind played tricks sometimes. I started walking again, faster this time, but the sound returned, a closer, quicker, matching me. I could hear breathing now, low and uneven, like someone trying not to be heard. My stomach tightened. The air seemed thicker. I spun around again, and that's when I saw it, a silhouette crouched against the wall near a dumpster, wide eyes catching the streetlight. I froze. Then instinct took over. I ran. My shoes splashed through puddles as I tore down the last stretch of the alley, my heart pounding so loud it drowned everything else out. I burst onto Maple Street gasping, clutching my bag to my chest. When I finally turned back, the figure hadn't moved. It stood perfectly still. No, not stood. It was posed. And as the light shifted, I saw the shine of molded plastic. A mannequin. But not just any mannequin. It was wearing a Ruby's Diner uniform. White shirt, red apron, name tag. My name tag. By the time I got home, I was shaking so hard I could barely get my keys into the door. I told myself it was a prank. Some kids, maybe someone from the diner messing around. But deep down, it didn't feel like that. The mannequin's face, blank, painted, frozen in a faint half-smile, was burned into my mind. The next morning, I barely slept. When the sun came up, everything looked harmless again, like the night had just been a bad dream. Still, when I walked into work, I found myself scanning the parking lot, half expecting to see that same plastic figure leaning against the wall. Ruby noticed right away that something was off. "You look like hell, Ellie," she said, sliding me a coffee. "Rough night?" "Didn't sleep much," I said, trying to sound casual. She gave me a look but didn't press. Around noon during the lunch rush, I caught sight of something that made my stomach drop. Through the front window across the street near the old pharmacy, there was a shape, tall, pale, standing in the shade. A mannequin. Same uniform, same red apron. I blinked hard. When I looked again, it was gone. By the end of my shift, I had convinced myself I was just exhausted. Seeing things, maybe even dreaming with my eyes open. But as I clocked out that night, I noticed something strange. My name tag, the one I wore every shift, was missing from my apron. I checked my locker, my bag, even the counter, nothing. Lose something? I turned. It was Jake, the line cook. His voice always had this teasing edge. "My name tag," I said. "You haven't seen it, have you?" He shook his head. "Probably fell off somewhere. Don't sweat it." But I did sweat it. All the way home. This time I avoided the alley and took the long route. The streets were nearly empty. The rain gone, but the air still damp. Every passing shadow made me flinch. When I reached my apartment, I locked the door, drew the curtains, and checked them twice. I kept telling myself it couldn't follow me, that it wasn't even real. But at 3:17 a.m., when I got up to get water, I saw something through the gap in my curtains, a figure standing under the streetlight. A mannequin, and this one was wearing my missing name tag. I called the police the next morning. They sent an officer, a young guy named Henson, who looked too tired to care. I explained everything, the alley, the mannequin, the name tag. He wrote it all down, nodded occasionally, but I could tell he didn't buy it. "So someone's putting mannequins around town?" he said finally. "Weird, yeah, but not exactly a crime." "It's wearing my uniform," I said, my voice shaking. "It was waiting for me," he sighed. "Could be a prank. You'd be surprised what bored people do. Just stay alert, okay?" He left after 10 minutes. I felt worse than before he came. When I got to work that afternoon, the place was unusually quiet. Jake was chopping onions in the kitchen. Ruby was counting tips in the office. The diner felt off. I went to hang up my coat and saw something taped to my locker door. A photo. It showed the back alley behind Ruby's, the same one I'd walked through that night. In the corner of the photo, half hidden by shadow, stood the mannequin. Someone had written under it in red marker, "See you after work." My knees almost gave out. I ripped the photo down and stuffed it into my pocket. I didn't tell Ruby. What would I even say? That a mannequin was stalking me? That night I didn't take any route home. I called Jake instead. "Hey, you driving tonight?" "Yeah," he said. "Why?" "Can you give me a ride? Just..." "Don't ask why." He showed up after closing. I felt stupid sitting in his car, clutching my bag like it was a life raft. "You sure you're okay?" he asked. "I will be," I said, "once I'm home." He drove in silence, the radio playing soft country music. The rain started again, thin streaks across the windshield. When we pulled up to my building, I reached for the handle, then froze. Across the street, under the streetlight, stood the mannequin. Jake followed my gaze. "What the hell?" Before he could finish, the figure toppled forward, face first onto the pavement, arms bent awkwardly. It didn't move again. We sat there, silent, listening to the rain. The next day, I couldn't face going to work. I called in sick, though Ruby didn't sound convinced. Jake texted me later saying the police had come by the diner asking questions about vandalism. Someone had broken into the supply shed behind the building, left mannequin limbs scattered everywhere. I wanted to forget it all, but I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that blank plastic smile. I needed answers. So that night, I went back to where it started, the alley. It was just past midnight. The rain had stopped, but the ground was slick. I carried a flashlight and a kitchen knife I probably wouldn't know how to use. The alley was silent except for the hum of a distant generator. I swept the light over the walls and graffiti, trash bags, nothing else. Until I reached the dumpster. There, propped against the bricks, was the mannequin. Its limbs had been reattached. Its head tilted slightly like it was curious. My name tag still hung crookedly on its chest, and behind it, written on the wall in thick black spray paint, "I see you, Ellie." Something inside me cracked. "Who's doing this?" I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls. "What do you want?" For a moment, nothing. Then my footsteps. Real ones. A man stepped out from behind the dumpster, tall, wearing a hooded raincoat. He looked older, gaunt. I recognized him. He'd been a customer at the diner weeks ago. Always came in near closing, always sat alone. "I just wanted to see you," he said, voice soft. "You always smiled at me." Nobody else did. My stomach turned. "You followed me?" He nodded, eyes flicking to the mannequin. "Made her for you, so you'd never walk alone." I backed up. "You're sick. I'm lonely." Then he stepped closer and I ran. I dropped the flashlight, bolted down the alley, heart hammering in my ears. I didn't stop until I was pounding on a police station door 10 blocks away. They caught him that night. His name was Daniel Reeves. He'd worked at a department store years ago before getting fired for theft. The mannequins were leftover stock he'd stolen, repainted, dressed, posed. The police found dozens in a storage unit he rented near the train yard. He told them I was special. It's been 3 months now. Ruby's diner is back to normal. Jake still jokes about Ellie and her haunted mannequin, but I just smile. I quit taking the alley. I don't even work the late shift anymore. But sometimes, walking home, I still hear footsteps behind me. I tell myself it's just the echo of my own. At least I hope it is. Never ignore the unease that whispers in your gut. We grow up learning to be polite, to second-guess fear, to rationalize danger as coincidence. But instincts exist for a reason. The moment something feels wrong, it usually is.